Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
But then the fourth player, Minato, stood up to defend the village. His courage inspired all the defenders. At the crucial moment, Minato used a technique to seal the monster into the body of his newborn son, Naruto. This act saved the village, but it cost Minato his life. A lonely baby with a seal on his belly was left crying in the middle of the destruction. The third Kage took the newborn Naruto in his arms, bitterly mourning the death of the student. The child, unconscious of everything, continued to cry in the ruins of his native home. The news of the victim in the room spread quickly through Konoha. The villagers pronounced his name with admiration and gratitude. But, at the same time, the fear and hatred towards baby Naruto grew every day. He was no longer seen as a child, but as the nine-tailed dragon himself, imprisoned in human form. The third one took care of Naruto personally. He gave a strict order forbidding anyone to harm or disclose the truth about the child. But the hatred did not disappear, it just lurked under the mask of indifference and fear. The whole village seemed to have excluded him from their lives, with the exception of the third Kage. The Hokage sincerely took care of baby Naruto, visiting him and paying attention to him. However, a single person was not enough to fill the void in the child's soul. And soon another person appeared in his life, who extended a hand to him. She was Anko Mitarashi, a young kunoichi girl with a dark past similar to the fate of a small child. Anko saw in Naruto a fate similar to that of a loner and wanted to protect him from the dark path as she herself had once been. Anko shared his decision to adopt Naruto with the third Kage, and he completely approved of the idea. She was glad that the baby had a real home and a caring mother. The Hokage helped Anko obtain all the necessary documents for the adoption and promised to support her financially, so that she could devote herself completely to raising Naruto. When Anko took little Naruto in her arms for the first time, she felt an inexplicable connection with this child. She saw the innocence in her blue eyes, but also the pain of being alone. Anko hugged Naruto tightly against his chest and silently promised to protect and love him. On the way home with baby Naruto in his arms, Anko felt sidelong glances and whispers behind his back. Some passers-by deliberately turned or crossed the street as he approached. But Anko proudly advanced, pressing Naruto to his chest and ignoring the condemnation. At home, Anko gently lowered Naruto onto the table to take off his warm clothes. The baby immediately began to cry loudly. She tried to calm him down, but she couldn't. He didn't know how to hold it or rock it properly, which only made him more upset. Anko tried to give him milk, but Naruto turned around and did not take the pacifier. Then she began to walk around the room, saying soothing words to him, but the baby continued to cry loudly. Naruto was obviously hungry and tired after a hard day, but Anko didn't know how to comfort him. She felt helpless and confused. Every attempt at Anko's affection only made the situation worse. Naruto cried for a long time until, exhausted, he fell asleep in Anko's arms, exhausted by his crying. Carefully, she put the baby in the crib. Anko understood that she urgently needed help. He decided to write a note to Kulina's friend, and Anko summoned a small snake and asked him to deliver a note to Kulina. In the note, he asked for a meeting and advice on a very urgent personal matter, without specifying details. Kulina had always been distinguished by his receptivity and kindness. Anko was hoping he would agree to help. Comforted by this thought, Anko also lay down to rest. The next day, Karena and Jumi arrived at Anko's house. Anko opened the door and let Karena. "Did you send me a note? What kind of help do you need?" Kulina asked, and, "That's what I need help with," Anko said with some embarrassment, pointing to the crib where little Naruto was sleeping. "Huh. Have you decided to become a nanny or something?" Karena asked, and with some surprise. "Actually, I'm her mother," Anko said with a tired smile. Karena stood there for a few seconds, trying to digest her words. "Wait a minute. Did you adopt a child? But how? When?" Kurenai was really surprised. Well, I've always been full of surprises, she smiled back at Anko. Of course. But adopting a child is a big responsibility. Are you sure you're ready for this? Kurenai asked. The truth is, I'm terrified, confessed Anko. I know nothing about how to treat children. So I need your help, at least some advice on how to take care of the baby. Well, although I don't know much about how to treat small children, let's try to find something together, Kulina suggested. First, you need to establish contact and trust with him. Try to talk to him as much as possible, communicate with him warmly, and pick him up. Children are very sensitive to the emotions and moods of their loved ones. We need to figure out his daily routine when he sleeps and when he eats better. Establish some kind of routine and rituals to get him used to them. And of course, show him all the love and care you can. Love and patience are what a baby needs to feel comfortable and trust. Karena had just been giving Anko advice about taking care of the baby when, suddenly, a loud crying was heard from the crib. Naruto woke up and clearly wanted something. Anko sighed and shot an apologetic look at her friend. He approached the crib and carefully carried Naruto in his arms, trying to calm him down. Well, don't cry, darling, she said softly. Now mother will arrange everything. But Naruto continued to moan in frustration and writhe in his arms. Try to do it for me, it often helps, Kulina advised, and Anko began to gently rock the baby back and forth, singing a lullaby to him. Naruto gradually calmed down, looking at her with interest with his big blue eyes. You see that? She was encouraged by Kulina. Although Naruto calmed down in Anko's arms, after a while, he started crying and playing again. He seems to be hungry, Kulina suggested, and you have fed him recently. For the last time, my God, I didn't feed her, Anko said embarrassed. After bringing it yesterday, of course I tried, but I couldn't. Anko felt terrible. How could she forget to feed the baby? All right, pass it on, Kulina reassured, and the main thing is to improve. Anko took out a bottle of milk and was relieved to see that Naruto started sucking greedily. I will definitely keep an eye on her feeding, she promised herself. Mistakes like this will never happen again. After feeding Naruto, Karena advised Anko to buy him toys and devices that would help entertain the baby and calm him down. You need to buy her colorful educational doilies, rattles, and stuffed animals. This will help stimulate and develop him, Kurenari said. Anko nodded in relief. You're right, I need all of this. Could you keep an eye on Naruto while I go to the store? I am very afraid to leave him alone, even for a little while. Sure, go quietly. I'll play with this precious one until you come back, Kurenai said, smiling, taking Naruto from Anko's arms. The boy looked at the unknown ant with interest, stroking her long black hair. Kurenai tickled Naruto, which made him laugh. Anko nodded gratefully and ran to the nearest toy store. He took some soft and colorful cubes, rattles shaped like animals, and a brightly patterned carpet. Upon returning, Anko found a touching image of a cow and tenderly hugged Naruto, who was sleeping, against his chest, and hummed a lullaby to him. Anko's toys were nearby, but the baby fell asleep before he had time to play with them. With the passage of time, little Naruto was growing up. Anko tried her best to be an exemplary and caring mother. She fed him, played with him, put him to bed, and tried by all means to provide him with the warmth and care he so badly needed. Although taking care of the child was not easy for Anko, she sincerely loved Naruto and was willing to do anything for him. When Naruto grew up and started crawling, walking, and talking more, Anko had to be careful so that he didn't get hurt or cause problems. One day, while Anko was preparing lunch in the kitchen, Naruto quietly crawled into the room and took a cot and from the table. Anko, horrified, heard the metallic clinking in the next room and ran there. Luckily, Naruto was just playing with the crib and didn't get hurt. Anko quickly took the gun from him, scolding first him and then herself for her carelessness. On another occasion, Anko had to leave Naruto alone all day as he urgently needed to go out on business. She left him food and toys in an accessible place, hoping that nothing would happen to him in a few hours. When he returned home, he was horrified to find a complete mess. Naruto overturned the little table of no. He scattered all the toys and smeared the walls with paint. The baby, sitting in the middle of this chaos, smiled happily at his mother. Anko could barely hold back the tears. She was bitter about having to leave her son, and happy that he was okay. But she also felt sad because she would have to clean up all that mess. Soon Naruto became a cheerful and jovial boy. He was almost identical to his mother in character, just as mischievous and energetic. Although deep down, Naruto still felt lonely because other children rejected him. But Anko's care and love meant a lot to him. And so it was the last night before Naruto went to the Ninja Academy. She was walking down the street with her mother, enjoying the warm summer air. "Tomorrow is such an important day," Anko said, looking at her thoughtful son. "Don't worry, be yourself and you'll get there." Naruto looked at her hopefully. "Do you think so, Mom? I try really hard to be nice, but for some reason, a lot of people avoid me. Because they just don't really know you." He was encouraged by Anko, and at the academy, you will have the opportunity to prove how wonderful you are. And yes, I have decided that starting tomorrow you will not only have classes at the academy, but also additional lessons with me, Anko said with a mischievous smile. "You know, I'm a teacher too." I didn't hesitate. Naruto replied with the same mischievous smile. "Well, since tomorrow is going to be a very busy day, let's buy dango on the way home and then go to bed early," Anko suggested. "You need to get a good night's sleep the night before your first day at the academy." "That's a great idea, Mom. I love the dango." Naruto was delighted. They went to Naruto's favorite candy store, bought a fragrant dango bar, and slowly walked home in the warm twilight. At home, Naruto quickly brushed his teeth and went to sleep. Anko gently kissed him on the forehead at night, wished him good dreams, and quietly left the room, turning off the light. "Tomorrow, your little one will be one step closer to his dream of becoming a real shinobi." As soon as the sun's rays came through the window and hit him in the face, Naruto instantly woke up and jumped off the couch. Today is his first day at the Ninja Academy. To his surprise, he woke up before his mother, who used to wake him up in the morning. But the boy decided not to waste time and immediately began to collect everything he needed to study. In his small two-room apartment, Naruto slept on a sofa bed in the living room, and Anko had a separate room. In silence, so as not to wake his mother, Naruto took out his backpack and put notebooks, pens, and pencils there. He was about to run out of the house when, suddenly, the bedroom door opened and Anko came out, rubbing his eyes. "Where are you going so early?" he asked, yawning. "Can you guess it?" Naruto sarcastically replied with another question. Anko, still sleepy, went to the kitchen, trying to remember what day it was. "Oh my God, today is my first day at the academy. How could you forget that?" Naruto said cheerfully, with feigned indignation. "Oh, of course, you're going to the academy today." Hearing that, a warm smile was drawn on Anko's face. "Well, let's have a quick breakfast, and I'll walk you out, okay?" He gave Naruto a gentle pat on the head and started making breakfast for them to say goodbye to his son. After a quick breakfast, Anko and Naruto got dressed and went out. They immediately realized that they were heading to Anko's favorite candy store, where they sold dangos. "Let me guess, let's go to the store where you are going to buy dango?" Naruto asked slyly. "To the point. How can it be that I'm not on such an important day?" Anko laughed. They entered a small and cozy store, where they were greeted with joy by an older salesman, Gay, Anko, and Naruto. "What kind of early morning visits? What are they going to take? Give us 5 dangos, please," he asked for Anko. The salesman carefully packed 5 fragrant dangos and handed the bag to Naruto. "Here you go. Best of luck today. Be diligent and hardworking." "Of course. Thank you very much." Naruto smiled and took the package. Anko gently stroked his head, and they left the store, heading to the academy. After a couple of minutes, Anko couldn't stand it and took Dango's bag from Naruto. He took out 2 sticks, gave one to Naruto, and kept the other. Mother and son happily walked down the street, eating aromatic sweets. Naruto ate his favorite candy with pleasure, and Anko smiled tenderly, looking at the happy boy. When he put down Dango's wand, Naruto continued to hold it in his mouth, smiling happily. He walked down the street, ignoring passersby, some of whom turned to look at the couple. Anko was dressed as usual, while Naruto wore a gray jacket, completely unbuttoned on the chest, with a gray mesh t-shirt underneath. He was also wearing gray trousers and black sandals. Naruto and Anko arrived at the gates of the Ninja Academy. Many children with their parents had already gathered in front of them. At the entrance. "Well, here we are," Anko said, turning to Naruto. "Are you ready for new discoveries?" "Yes, I'm ready," Naruto replied cheerfully, although deep down he was still worried. "Everything will be fine. Be yourself and try to connect with your peers. And after class, I'll wait for you right here." "Thanks, Mom. I'll do my best." Naruto nodded and hugged her tight to say goodbye. Anko ruffled his hair once more and gently pushed him towards the door. Naruto walked through the door of the academy, and he found himself in the courtyard. The boys were running back and forth, talking animatedly. Naruto looked around uncertainly, looking for familiar faces. Suddenly, he saw a guy in the crowd, dressed in a mesh t-shirt and a short, open gray vest with green trim. And on each sleeve he wore the symbol of the Nara clan. It was Shikamaru Nara, whom Naruto sometimes saw in the courtyard. Next to Shikamaru was a fat boy with a packet of crisps in his hands, Choji Akimichi. "Hello?" Naruto waved his hand. "You're going to the academy too?" "Oh, it's you," Naruto replied Shikamaru without much enthusiasm. "Yes, Choji and I will study here too." "What do you think awaits us on the first day?" Naruto asked, trying to keep the conversation going. "Probably some introductory speeches, getting to know the teachers," Choji said on shoulder. "The main thing is that there is time to have a snack after classes." But despite the somewhat restrained reception, Naruto was still cheerful and smiling. He still had a dango stick in his mouth. "And from which families will you study here?" Naruto asked, trying to keep the conversation going. "We are from the Nara and Akimichi clans," Shikamaru replied in a tone as if that should explain everything. "The Nara and Akimichi clans must have been very famous and powerful shinobi there, right?" Naruto asked, trying to hide his discomfort. "Well, yes, our ancestors were famous for their techniques," Choji nodded. "That sounds great. By the way, I am from the Mitarasi family. We are not very famous, but I will do my best to succeed," Naruto stated enthusiastically. "Mitarasi? Ah, well, yes, I seem to have heard something about this family," Shikamaru said, thoughtfully and slurring his words. "That's right. I will try to show you that I am capable, despite not having a famous name," Naruto said with confidence. "That's great. May you be lucky," Choji encouraged him. When the doorbell rang, Iruka Amino came out to the courtyard of the academy and invited the new students to enter the classroom. The boys calmly entered and looked around. "Welcome, guys. Come in, have a seat. First, let's get to know each other. I am Iruka Amino, and I will be your mentor during your studies at the academy." Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji occupied the same desk. Two girls sat next to him, Sakura, with pink hair, and Ino, blonde. Naruto glanced at Sakura out of the corner of his eye and felt his cheeks turn red. "How beautiful she is," he thought. One by one, the boys called them by their names. When he heard Naruto's performance, he stood up and said, "My name is Naruto Mitarasi. I promise to be a diligent student and master all ninjutsu. Nice to meet you." After meeting Iruka, Yumi did not distribute notebooks with the year's curriculum to everyone, and the lesson began. "Well, guys, today in the first lesson, we will start with the basics. Let's open the textbooks on page 4 and explore what chakra is and how ninjas use it." Naruto diligently wrote down everything Iruka said in a notebook. Shikamaru was sitting next to him, looking bored, and Choji was chewing French fries silently under the desk. After finishing the classes, the students began to slowly return home. Naruto walked out of the academy and stopped at the door, waiting for his mother. He waited for a long time at the door of the academy, but Anko still did not appear. The companions dispersed. There was hardly anyone left in the yard. Finally, a familiar-looking woman with long black hair and red eyes approached Naruto. She was Kurena and Hua, Anko's friend. "Hello, Naruto. Why are you here alone for so long? Where's Anko? What's the matter?" He asked. Hello? I'm waiting for my mom. He promised to see me after class, but he hasn't arrived yet. Naruto replied in frustration. Mom, shall I let you help find her? Let's go together. Kurenai suggested. Naruto and Kurenai went to find Anko. They knew I could be in two places, in a dango shop and a bar. After checking the store with dango, they went to the second place and finally found Anko, who was drunk and asleep on the table. Why am I not surprised? Naruto thought. Kurenai and was not surprised either. Kurenai and gently woke Anko up and helped her to get up from the table. Anko blinked drowsily and looked at her friend and Naruto in surprise. Oh, Naruto. I'm sorry, I think I'm a little late, Anko muttered shakily. Yes, a little, Kulina laughed and, okay, let me help you take Naruto home, and I'll come to your house at night. Naruto spat out Dango's wand silently and took his mother by the arm, helping her to walk. He was not too offended that Anko had forgotten about him because of the serve, given that it was not the first time. At home, Anko lay down to rest, and Kurenai and Naruto ate something together. You know, he loves you very much, Kurenai said, and in a low voice. It's just that sometimes it's hard for him to deal with the past. But he's trying for you. Naruto nodded. He wasn't mad at Mom. In the evening, Kurenai and visited Anko. And in the morning, he apologized to Naruto and promised him not to do it again. Naruto always forgave his mother. After all, she was his only family. The next day, Naruto went to the academy as usual. Anko accompanied him to the door, but at the same time he did not look good. Apparently, he was hungover. In class, Naruto sat down at his desk and took out a textbook and a notebook. Shikamaru and Choji sat next to each other. Hey Naruto, what happened to you yesterday? Shikamaru asked. We saw you standing at the door for quite a while after class. Just like that? I was a little late, Naruto replied evasively, not wanting to tell the truth. Maybe we can all go for ramen together after school today, Choji suggested. I know a nice place nearby. Naruto smiled and nodded. A group of friends would help him distract himself from domestic problems. After school, the three of them went to Ichiraku's ramen room. There they enjoyed a delicious meal and rested a little after studying. Naruto was having fun little by little. At night at home, she told Anko how her day had been. Anko was glad that her son was making friends. After dinner, Anko told Naruto, starting tomorrow, you and I will start additional training after classes at the academy. The main task will be to practice chakra control to make it easier for you to master ninjutsu. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. He liked the idea of additionally training with Anko. Also, try to find books and scrolls on the theory and practice of chakra control in the library or bookstores. It will help you in your studies. I'll look for something too. It's okay, Mom. I will definitely try to get useful books. He promised Naruto. He was glad of any opportunity to spend more time with Anko. The next day, when Naruto approached the class at the academy, he immediately heard loud and familiar voices were Sakura and No, who, as always, were discussing Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto simply sighed and walked into the classroom, sitting down next to his friends Shikamaru and Choji. God, those two fools are screaming about that nerd again, Naruto muttered softly, shaking his head. Shikamaru nodded in agreement. That's not the word, they already shouted because of Uchiha. I'm sick of it. Naruto shot a quick glance at Sasuke. Uchiha, as always, remained with a distant gaze, ignoring the screams of the fans. It seemed that he did not care much about the feminine passions that surrounded him. This guy definitely needs to work on his social skills, Naruto thought. The teacher entered the classroom, urging everyone to calm down. Naruto got ready for another day of school, looking forward to training with Anko after class. After the classes at the academy, Naruto went straight to the library. He recalled the promise of finding books and scrolls on the theory and practice of chakra control. Going through the shelves, Naruto found several suitable books, Fundamentals of Chakra Control, Development of Chakra Reserves for Beginners, as well as a more advanced volume, Subtleties of Chakra Manipulation. Satisfied with his find, he took them away. Upon arriving home, Naruto immediately went to his mother, proudly showing her the loot from the library. "Look, Mom, I found something useful," he exclaimed, handing the books to Anko. "I think they will help me with my chakra management training." Anko nodded approvingly, looking at the titles. "Well done, Naruto. These books will certainly be useful to you. Theoretical knowledge is fundamental to understanding the principles of working with the chakra." Anko patted Naruto on the head in praise. "Now study these materials diligently. The more you learn about the chakra, the easier it will be for you to control it in practice. And later, we will start the first lesson." Naruto beamed with Anko's approval. After a short break, Naruto and Anko started the first practical lesson on chakra control. Anko started with basic meditation and concentration exercises, explaining the importance of learning to feel the flow of the chakra inside us. "The chakra is not just a source of energy for jutsu," Anko said. "It is closely connected with the mind and the body. Controlling it means controlling yourself, your emotions, movements, and even your breathing." Naruto concentrated on following Anko's instructions, trying to feel the inner flow of chakra. It was difficult at first, but gradually he began to distinguish subtle currents of energy. The next stage consisted of concentration and chakra release exercises. Anko showed him how to concentrate it on different points of the body, palms of hands and feet, and then release it in a controlled way. Naruto started practicing enthusiastically, but on several occasions he experienced uncontrollable chakra emissions, which caused minor damage to the area. Anko corrected his mistakes patiently. "Control is acquired with experience. Don't worry about failures. It's part of learning," he encouraged Naruto. By the end of the training, Naruto felt exhausted, but determined to keep working hard. "Good job today." Anko congratulated them at the end. "Tomorrow, we will continue with new exercises. The main thing is practice and concentration." Naruto nodded, looking forward to the next training session. Time passed, and it had been 3 years since Anko started training Naruto with Anko. During these years, a clear routine developed. Naruto attended classes at the academy during the day, and when he returned home, additional training with his mother was waiting for him. Thanks to his tireless effort and iron discipline, Naruto has made significant progress in his abilities. He has completely mastered chakra control, that key skill that we have worked on with so much Anko from the very beginning. In addition, Naruto has perfected his mastery of the traditional shuriken shikuna ninja weapons, and their accuracy has become truly amazing thanks to countless hours of practice. The biggest surprise for Anko was that Naruto was able to create a huge amount of shadow clones. Since such an amount required a large amount of chakra, Naruto could perform this jutsu almost effortlessly. Anko was amazed by the hidden potential of her adopted son. "It seems that I have the blood of a real monster, and in a good way," he thought proudly, watching Naruto improve his skills every day. One day, Anko was walking in the company of her old friend Kushina and Hua. The cozy atmosphere seemed to be the perfect time for a request that Anko had been brewing for some time. "Listen, Kushina, and I have a request for you," Anko began, trying to make his voice sound casual. Kushina and turned to her with an interested look. "I wonder which one." "Come on, I'm paying attention." Anko collected her thoughts and continued. "You see, I recently found out that Naruto has huge chakra reserves. They are much larger than those of an ordinary shinobi. And I thought it definitely wouldn't hurt for him to learn genjutsu to make the most of that potential." Kushina and frowned in perplexity, trying to make sense of what she had heard. "Wait, you say your son has more chakras than many experienced honins, but how is that possible?" "It's a long story," Anko said. "Well, in general, Naruto will definitely have no problems with reservations, I guarantee it." Kushina and shook her head in perplexity, but then nodded decisively. "Okay, your truth. Genjutsu is best suited for shinobi with large chakra reserves. Don't worry, I will gladly help you with your child's training." Anko smiled gratefully. "Great. Thank you very much, Kurinari. With your experience and his talent, Naruto will undoubtedly become an unsurpassed master of illusions." "Oh, be careful with the twists," Kurenai said with a smile. "Genjutsu is a subtle art, but I will try to put all my skill into it." Anko was delighted. After reaching an agreement with Kurenai, Naruto's training had entered a new and exciting phase. In addition to her usual daily training in various aspects of ninjutsu, regular genjutsu classes had been added, under the guidance of an experienced kunoichi specialist. At first, Naruto immersed himself in the study of the theoretical foundations of creating illusions with his usual enthusiasm. Kurenai patiently explained to him the principles of chakra projection to influence the target's mind, the importance of concentration and visualization. Genjutsu is not just smoke and mirrors tricks, Kurenai instructed. It is the art of deceiving all the senses of the enemy, subordinating his perception to your will. It requires masterful chakra control and impeccable awareness. Naruto diligently took notes of every word of the mentor, trying to delve into all the nuances of this refined discipline. He realized that creating high-quality illusions is a much more subtle task than a simple attack jutsu. The practical exercises soon began. At first, Naruto had difficulties with the exact distribution of the chakra and the concentration needed for genjutsu. His first attempts to create the illusion were quite rudimentary and unstable. However, as always, perseverance played an important role. Gradually, following the clear instructions of Kushina and Naruto, he became increasingly proficient in the nuances of projecting illusory perception through the chakra. His genjutsu became more realistic and stable. Kurenai was impressed by the speed with which her new student learned genjutsu, since this direction was considered one of the most difficult even for advanced ninjas. "You know, Naruto, I'm starting to think that with your abilities and chakra reserves, you can achieve a level of genjutsu that we never dreamed of," Kurenai admitted, and once after a particularly impressive demonstration. Naruto looked at her confidently and smiled broadly. "You can be sure of that, Kurenai and Sensei. I will become the best teacher of illusions this world has ever seen. It's just a matter of time and training." In someone else's mouth, this might seem like empty braggadocio. But Kurenai had already thoroughly studied the character of her protege and saw a sincere determination in his words. Days of constant training brought Naruto inexorably closer to an important milestone, the final exams of the Ninja Academy. This day was supposed to mark the transition from student to full-fledged genin, a beginner in the shinobi Kono Agakura. But unlike most of his peers, Naruto didn't feel much excitement about the upcoming tests. Years of additional training with Anko and Kushina, and, in addition to their phenomenal skills and dedication, gave her full confidence in her training. Naruto possessed a complete arsenal of ninjutsu, perfected to perfection, including his signature jutsu, the shadow clones. His skill with weapons was impeccable. Kunai and shuriken were obediently flying out of his hands, hitting targets with incredible accuracy. But perhaps Naruto's most outstanding achievement was that, at such a young age, he mastered mid-level genjutsu, one of the most sophisticated and difficult illusion techniques to master. Under the tutelage of Kushina, and perfected the ability to project illusory reality using the chakra. His skills were so impressive that Naruto even allowed himself to use genjutsu while helping Shikamaru and Choji during boring classes. With the help of an imperceptibly induced illusion, I could give them the impression that they were awake and listening attentively to the professor, when in fact they were peacefully dozing in class. So, by the time the final exams arrived, Naruto's confidence in success was fully justified. His many years of tireless work, phenomenal skills, and excellent mentors had made him an exemplary ninja candidate. On the long-awaited day of the final exams, Naruto entered the academy classroom with his usual positive and confident attitude. After observing the audience, he sat down at his desk, ready to demonstrate all his skills. Soon, Sensei Iruka, one of the main teachers and examiners, entered the room. His face reflected seriousness as he watched the assembled graduates. "Today is the decisive day for you, when you will have to prove that you are really ready to become a Konoha ninja," Iruka began loudly. "The exam is divided into two parts, written and practical. Completing both is necessary to obtain the rank of genin." Iruka paused for effect, letting his words echo in the silence of the classroom. In a written test, you will have to demonstrate your knowledge of history, traditions, and the shinobi code. The second, practical part, consists of creating at least 2 effective shadow clones. Only with success in both disciplines will you be able to get a good rank. Naruto could barely contain a smile as he listened to the instructions. He knew that these tests were just a formality for him after years of hard training. The written exam did not require any effort. Anko carefully studied with him all the necessary areas of knowledge. Naruto described in detail the history of Konoha, the principles of life, and the shinobi code of conduct. But the main intrigue was waiting during the practical part, when it came to creating clones. Naruto walked to the center of the room and, clasping his hands in a seal, began to concentrate. A moment later, a cloud of smoke arose around him, from which an entire army of identical Naruto. Hundreds of completely real shadow clones filled the classroom, smiling and adopting combat positions. It was a really impressive demonstration of skill, far beyond a common final exam. Iruka and the other examiners stared at this splendor with their mouths open, completely surprised. None of them could even imagine that young Genin was capable of such a thing. At that moment, Naruto allowed himself a triumphant smile, contemplating the effect produced. Even those who knew Naruto well and had heard about his phenomenal abilities did not expect to see something like this. Such scale and quality of shadow clone jutsu execution far surpassed what an ordinary genin, or even an experienced shinobi, was capable of. Hino and Sakura were so bewildered that they forgot to even discuss Sasuke, as they used to do. And Mata had to take his hands away from his mouth so as not to betray his surprise. Shikamaru and Choji just shook their heads silently, not finding the words. However, in the midst of this general shock, the reaction of a Sasuke Uchiha person stood out. Unlike most of his companions, there was not a hint of amazement or delight on his face. Instead, he pursed his lips in disgust and turned away, as if what was happening did not impress him at all. The truth was that envy and anger were eating away at him inside at Naruto's impressive show of strength. After enjoying the effect of his amazing demonstration, Naruto raised his hand, pointing to the numerous clones. The next instant, the entire squad of his identical copies disappeared in a dense cloud of smoke, leaving only a stunned silence in the classroom. Smiling with satisfaction, Naruto returned to his desk. His confident, slightly lazy step indicated that he was completely convinced that he had passed the exam. Slumped into a chair, Naruto shot a look of smugness to his stunned companions. After the announcement of the exam results, Iruka called the new Jennings to silence. Congratulations to everyone for this outstanding achievement. It began solemnly. From now on, they are no longer students, but full-fledged Konoha shinobi. You will have the great responsibility and honor to protect our village. Iruka made a significant pause, letting his words sear into the minds of those present. His gaze radiated pride for his former students. Dangerous missions, challenges, and continuous skill upgrades await you. But I am sure that you will carry the title of shinobi with honor. Then Iruka turned his gaze to Naruto, not hiding his admiration for the achievements of the best graduate. And you, Naruto, with your shining example, showed us true courage, perseverance, and dedication to the shinobi way. Your phenomenal skills and tireless work have brought you to the highest level of mastery today. For a moment, there was a reverent silence in the classroom. They were aware of the scale of the approval expressed towards Naruto. I hope all of you will take an example of his boundless zeal for excellence and dedication to the service of Konoha, Iruka said. Looking at the whole matter around him, Naruto was deeply moved by his mentor's words. He made a deep bow to Iruka as a sign of his deepest gratitude. At the end of the ceremony at the academy, Naruto hurried back home, barely containing his excitement. She was looking forward to sharing the good news with her adoptive mother. As soon as Naruto crossed the threshold, Anko greeted him with a seemingly normal expression. "How did it go? What's the matter?" she asked with feigned indifference, though her eyes danced with mischievous gleams. Naruto smiled beaming, unable to contain his joy. Mom, I passed the exam perfectly. I got the highest rating of the entire edition. Iruka-sensei even praised me in front of everyone for my perseverance and skill. Anko pretended to gasp and pressed her palm against his chest. Really? Wow, I was wondering if my stupid son could achieve at least something in Shinob's life, and he sighed gratefully. But right away he outlined a huge smile. Come on, who am I kidding? I knew you could, Naruto. She hugged the young man, beaming with pride, tightly, putting all her maternal love and tenderness into his arms. I'm so proud of you. Honey. You have come a long and thorny way, but in the end, you proved your uniqueness to everyone. I never doubted your abilities for a moment. Tears of happiness flashed in Naruto's eyes at these words of approval. He nodded reverently, responding to A's embrace. Thanks, Mom. If it wasn't for your guidance and support, I would have never gotten this far. At that moment, a sympathetic silence came over them. Anko was proud that her adopted son made the most of every lesson and training. And Naruto was huge to him. Grateful for your unwavering faith in him and his wise guidance. Finally parting ways, Anko looked at Naruto with a mischievous smile. Well, Genin Mitarasi, I think we should celebrate. Maybe we'll go to a cozy restaurant. I invite you to celebrate your success. Naruto flashed a happy smile and nodded. After hugs and exclamations of joy, Naruto and Anko went to a cozy restaurant. On the way, they chatted and joked. At the restaurant, Anko, as usual, joked with the waiters with his spicy jokes, making them blush and laugh. Naruto just chuckled, getting used to his eccentric behavior. While they were eating noodles, Anko asked matter-of-factly, "Well, when are you supposed to be assigned to the Genin team? I don't want my son to relax after graduation." "Tomorrow morning," Naruto replied with his mouth full. "Iruka-sensei will announce the teams, and in the afternoon, we will meet with mentor Honen." "Great," Anko smiled. "I hope you get a stern but smart sensei. Only someone like that can get the most out of you." "Yes, Mama Sensei." Naruto River, deftly dodging his playful slap on the back of the head. After finishing the rest of the broth, Anko looked at his son with a malicious smile. "Well, Naruto Mitarasi, are you ready to show these green geniuses what my ward is capable of?" Naruto clenched his fist with a determined glint in his eyes. "Of that you can be sure. I'll make you the proudest mom in all of Konoha. You'll see." Anko stroked her tousled golden hair. "I'm already proud, honey. I'm already proud." The next day, Naruto sat at his desk and listened to Iruka-sensei distribute the genis by team. Waiting for the distribution of the equipment has always been an exciting time for every graduate of the Shinobi Academy. "Naruto Mitarasi," Iruka said, provoking muffled whispers in the classroom. Naruto straightened up, an impenetrable expression on his face, trying to ignore the muffled whispers of his companions. Being the adopted son of one of the most eccentric kunoichi in Konoha has always attracted too much attention. "You will be assigned to Team 8 under the leadership of Kureina and Hua," Iruka announced. "Your companions will be Kiba and Nuzuka and Inada Yuga." "Kiba. Well, he has a great style," Naruto thought, nodding at his friend, who smiled back at him. Then he looked at Inada. The girl was looking timidly at her desk, her cheeks flushed. "Inada. I hope I don't distract her on missions." But he did well, he worked hard in the academy. Kiba noisily attracted attention by stroking Akamaru. "Hey, Naruto. Together, we will become an invincible shinobi team, the best Konoha has ever seen," she exclaimed excitedly. "Easy, easy," Naruto told him with a smile. Kiba has always known how to carry a fighting spirit. When he finished announcing the compositions, Iruka looked around the class with a stern look. "Remember, teamwork is essential to be a shinobi. To gain the confidence of his compositions. Companions and sensei is as important as improving your own skills. This afternoon, they will meet with their mentors, the Honen. Best of luck to everyone." A couple of hours later, an excited Naruto was sitting in an almost empty classroom, impatiently swinging his leg and looking towards the door from time to time. "And where is Kureina and Jai? It's about time he showed up," he complained. Finally, the door opened, and a young woman, in the vest of the Honin uniform, entered the classroom. She looked around, plunged into silence, and smiled at the tense Jennings. Team 8. Good afternoon, I am Karena and Yui, and I will be your sensei from today. Follow me, please. Naruto quickly picked up his backpack and joined Kiba and Hinata, who were already lined up in front of Karena, and led his new Prit GS to a vast clearing on the outskirts of Konoha. He stopped, turned to the Genin, and his face took on a serious expression. Before we start training together, I have to make sure that they deserve to be a real shinobi team. To do this, they have to pass a test. Naruto exchanged puzzled looks with Kiba and Hinata. But haven't we already passed the final exam of the academy? Kiba asked with a reasonable tone, putting his arm around him. Take care and already felt. That's right, but that was only the first step. Now they must prove their ability to work together under my command as a complete squad. She squared her shoulders. Your task is to get hold of the special scrolls that I have hidden in this forest area before sunset. You can't find them alone, as they are protected by special traps and barriers. You will have to use all the skills and abilities available in the team. What if we fail? Hinata asked timidly. Then I will declare you unfit for service as a combat unit and the team will be disbanded, Karena replied mercilessly. Naruto clenched his fists, feeling his determination intensify. After observing the tense Kiba and Hinata, he adopted a fighting stance. Definitely, Karena and Sensei. We will definitely get these scrolls. Look what kind of team we'll make. Karena and mischievously narrowed her eyes. We'll see, Naruto. Start, please. And remember, if we don't work together, we will fail. With that, he made a gesture with his hand, and a cloud of smoke surrounded them on all sides. When the smoke cleared, Karena and had already disappeared. Kiba clapped vigorously. Well, guys, are you ready for the first test would be? Let's prove to Karena and that she got Team 8 right. Naruto smiled at his friend, and then winked at the shy Hinata, encouraging her. The smoke screen was the signal for the start of their trial to find the hidden scrolls. Team 8 went deep into the forest, trying to find them. Thanks to the smell of Kiba and Akamaru, they managed to partially unravel Kulina's camouflage prints, however, they soon came across the first traps and obstacles placed by their mentor. The skills of each genin were put into practice. Naruto used shadow clones to distract the traps, and Mata and Kiba used their special Byakugan appearances and the charm of the beast to discover hidden dangers and the way forward. And when they were attacked by a group of Kulina clones, and the young shinobi demonstrated teamwork in combat for the first time. A couple of hours later, after overcoming several obstacles and encountering traps, Kiba finally located one of the scrolls. However, it turned out that he was in the center of a vast field of illusory traps. Following the instructions of Naruto, who also studied Genjutsu with Karena, the team managed to partially neutralize the visual deception zone. Kiba and Akamaru paved the way, and Jimata used the Byakugan to help Naruto overcome the remaining obstacles and obtain the first hidden scroll. Elated by the first success, Team 8 took a short break, but then Naruto jumped to his feet, clenching his fist in the air. Hey, don't relax. Where are we going without the second scroll? Come on, guys, we need to hurry up before the sun goes down. Inspired by his energy, Kiba and Jimata followed Naruto and continued their search for the second scroll. He walked with renewed vigor. The sun was already setting on the horizon, remembering the approach of sunset and the need to hurry. This time they had to face much more insidious and dangerous traps set by Kulina. And Mata almost had a hard time down the well with deadly stakes if Naruto hadn't saved her in time with a clone. The team went into a more remote area of the forest where the trees were getting denser. And the further they went, the denser the fog became, difficulties vision and movement. This is clearly not an easy fog trap, Kiba said, squinting and looking around. It looks like a pretty high-level genjutsu. You're right, I also feel clusters of a special chakra, Hinata nodded, activating the Byakugan. Naruto clenched his fists decisively. In that case, I know what to do. Karena and Sensei taught me some techniques against genjutsu. Naruto concentrated and began to form hand seals. Suddenly, the fog around him trembled and began to change. Kiba and Jimata stood transfixed, watching as the clouds of fog gradually thickened and took on strange and terrifying shapes. "Be careful, this is an illusion," warned Naruto, rushing to complete the seals, plunged the opponent into a deep nightmarish trance. Before he could finish the sentence, creepy images suddenly emerged from the fog: fierce fire monsters, evil dead, gigantic snakes, and other nightmarish creatures. And Nada screamed in horror and brought the palms of her hands to her face. Kiba also became paralyzed, dazed, with dilated pupils. Naruto exhaled a sigh, breaking the deception of the genjutsu with his mind. "So, friends, get together. Everything is false, just an illusion." He made the hand seals again and sent a wave of scattered chakra to his companions, freeing their minds from the obsession. And Mata and Kiba were stunned when they woke up. The fog around him was gradually dissipating. "Good job, Naruto," Kurena's soft voice came from behind. As they turned around, the genin saw their mentor coming out from behind a tree, nodding respectfully. "You have demonstrated impressive chakra control and a great ability to unravel genjutsus. He did an excellent job with my illusion. In the rest, and Nata Kiba, they still have work to do to resist the powerful genjutsu. But in general, they managed to gather forces as a team and dispel the deception. Well done." He pulled a rolled-up scroll out of his pocket and handed it to Naruto. "You have passed the test, proving that you can work with a single set of Konoha genes. Congratulations. As of now, you are Team 8 under my leadership." Naruto beamed as he accepted the scroll. Kiba patted her on the back, and Jimata smiled gratefully, still a little embarrassed. "Don't relax," Kulina warned, but her eyes radiated pride. "There is a long and thorny road ahead of us towards shinobi mastery. But I'm glad we got such a promising team. You are all great companions." The genin smiled happily, feeling an incredible surge of strength and inspiration. After passing the entrance test, Kurena announced to her pupils that it was time to download them completely. Daily training became mandatory for Naruto and Mata and Kiba. Kurenai started by strengthening his basic skills by practicing taijutsu, weapon throwing, stealth, and chakra control. He also paid great attention to the development of each genin's strengths. For Naruto, it was the improvement of chakra reserve and cloning techniques, as well as the study of more complex techniques for creating and dispelling illusions. Kurena methodically trained him to control internal chakra flows and increase mental stability. And Nada, on the other hand, received instructions from her mentor to perfect the soft fist and Yakugan skills, the ability of strategy and leadership. The shy girl worked hard, striving to live up to her clan. And the militant Kibukurina taught the techniques of animal transformations and synchronization with Akamaru. In addition to developing his stealth and intelligence skills with the help of a sensitive nose and ear. In addition to individual training, special attention was paid to team interaction. He curates and assigned tasks to the genes that required coordinated actions. They learned to cover each other in combat, to draw up a joint plan, and to react to changes in the situation. After several months of training with Kurenai, Team 8 began to perform routine range missions in and around Kono Agakure. At first, they were simple tasks such as deservating flower beds, helping elderly villagers with household chores, repairing fences, and cleaning up the territory. Naruto was often indignant, as he considered these tasks unbearably boring. But Kurenai stood her ground, explaining that discipline and responsibility are the most important qualities for a shinobi. Over time, Team 8 began to receive more complex tasks, such as escorting commercial caravans, hunting small thieves, searching for lost pets, and conducting reconnaissance trips to the nearest forests. During these missions, the generations honed their tracking, camouflage, and command coordination skills in real field conditions. Inevitably, small excesses and misunderstandings arose, but the team quickly learned from their mistakes. Kurenai was very satisfied with her progress. Kiba and Akamaru worked excellently at the forefront, using their talent and stealth. And Nada improved her Yakugan and gained more and more self-confidence. And Naruto proved to be a reliable companion, covering them from the rear. After a series of successfully completed rank of missions, Kureina and Yui decided that their Genin Guardians were strong enough for a true field mission. He called them to the headquarters for a briefing. "Guys, your first test is coming. It would be like shinobi from Konoha," Kureina began, and in a serious tone. "We have been assigned the task of escorting an important client to the borders between the country of fire and the country of rivers." Naruto, Kiba, and Jimata stood up, feeling excitement for the upcoming mission. They have gone through intensive training in recent months and are now ready to put their skills into practice, Kureina continued and sternly. "However, do not forget that a real operation can present unexpected surprises and threats. They must be extremely focused and trust each other as a team." "We can handle it, Kureina and Sensei," Naruto exclaimed, clenching his fist tightly. "This mission will be a simple warm-up for us after all your intimidations in training." Kiba burst out laughing, and Mata smiled hard, curtly agreeing with Naruto. "Don't swear," Naruto Kureina and narrowed his eyes, but softened his tone. "Focus on the task. We leave tomorrow at 6 a.m., so gather your strength. Go get ready." In the evening, Naruto sat at the table, checking his equipment and remembering Anko's instructions on preparing for missions. The foster mother carefully studied her ammunition. "Are you ready for your first outing, tomboy?" Anko asked mischievously, looking at him approvingly. "Of course, Mom." Naruto smiled, deftly stowing his weapon in his backpack. "I'm a little worried, sure, but no less excited. This operation will be the first step towards my long-awaited goal of becoming a honey like you." Anko snorted and ruffled his hair. "Yes, modesty is not your thing. But don't forget about the team. I won't forgive you for your recklessness." Suddenly, he pulled Naruto to him and hugged him tight. "But I'm proud of you, honey. I am sure that you can overcome any obstacle. You're my son." Naruto hugged her tightly, absorbing her affection. "Salience and support. Thanks, Mom. I'll do my best for you." At dawn, after taking a last look at the Konoha Gate, Team 8 left to fulfill their first real mission. After a rapid march of half an hour towards the river country, the detachment advanced by a barely personal forest trail. "Receivable." Kureina and gave the signal, and the Genin deployed a security perimeter around their client, an elderly and wealthy silk merchant named Risetsu. Kiba and Akamaru were exploring the terrain, sniffing and listening to every sound. And Nada was backing them up with the Yakugan, looking for any sign of an ambush. And Naruto would secure them from the rear, releasing clones from time to follow false leads. Suddenly, Akamaru growled and cowered, warning of the danger. "Something is wrong." Akamaru feels that something is wrong, Kiba warned. And he kills with the Yakugan activated and sharply rounding his eyes. There's an ambush. Chakra signatures so far unnoticed, at least 4 masked shinobi. Kureina and narrowed her eyes in alarm. The mercenaries must have sent the attack because of the client. "Get ready to fight." As soon as he finished speaking, a shower of shurikens and kunai attacked them from all sides. The customer screamed in horror. Instantly, the team dispersed, taking defensive positions. Naruto fired a clone forward, scattering some projectiles. And Cream, hold the position and cover the client. He ordered Kulina and Kiba, "Naruto, attack with me. Let's destroy the naysayers." The trio pounced on the whirlwind of flying weapons, boldly pouncing on the opponents who had ambushed them. Their stealth and deception allowed them to reach the nearby positions without obstacles. A massacre broke out. Kureina and launched a pair of lethal shurikens at 2 mercenaries in the blink of an eye, and then unleashed a powerful genjutsu on them, forcing them into a chilling psychedelic trance. At that moment, Kiba and Akamaru launched a powerful attack combined with a rotating storm, scattering the ranks of mercenaries, and taking down several more. The incessant rain of kunai, which released shadow clones of Naruto, hit the enemies who were retreating from the flanks. The battle did not last long. Very soon, the last mercenaries fled in terror, leaving several comrades pinned to the ground. Fanning from the tension, Karena and looked proudly at her Jennings. Good job neutralizing the threat. They have proven to be a worthy Konoha combat team. After successfully repelling the mercenary attack, Team 8 continued their journey through the dangerous expanses of the forest. This time, they moved with redoubled vigilance, waiting for possible new ambushes and traps. Kiba and Akamaru explored the terrain again, carefully sniffing the smells and leaving special marks on the trees. And Nada was covering the rear, constantly monitoring all possible threats with the help of the Yakugan. Karena and Naruto concentrated on protecting Resetsu's trembling client. After noon wandering through the thick of the forest, the group arrived at the bank of a stormy river. However, the only bridge that crossed it was in ruins, which represented a serious obstacle. It looks like a Karena trap, and he frowned as he examined the remains of the bridge. The old boards did not withstand and collapsed under our weight. What are we going to do, Karena and Sensei? Inada asked. We can't stay here too long. I agree, Kulina nodded and, Naruto, give me a couple of your clones. I think I can weave a genjutsu strong enough for us to cross over to the other side. Naruto immediately created several shadow clones. Karena and joined her hands on a series of seals and released a special chakra flow into the clones. They were immediately transformed into a realistic replica of an improvised bridge over the river. Quickly, before I have little strength left, ordered Kulina, and being the first to enter the genjutsu crossing. The client and the Jennings ran after him. Although the illusory bridge seemed completely real, I had to hold onto it so as not to trip over. Kiba and Akamaru were the first to move, then Inada helped translate the Resetsu, using your flexibility and balance. And Naruto supported the divergent Karena and until the end. As soon as the team cleared the dangerous obstacle, a loud rumble was heard behind them. The illusory bridge finally disappeared. Ugh, we arrived just in time. Naruto exclaimed in relief, how ingenious, Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai smiled smugly, accepting the compliment. Kiba smiled and gave Naruto a playful pat on the back. Even Inada allowed herself to smile approvingly. They did a wonderful job, Kurenai confirmed. But don't let your guard down. We still have a long way to go to the border of the Land of Fire through these inhospitable lands. After the tense incident with the bridge, the squadron had to speed up its movements to leave the dangerous territories as soon as possible. Whenever possible, they tried to stay away from the main roads, fearing new attacks from thieves. They decided to spend the night in a remote wooded area with a strict security perimeter. Naruto volunteered to take the first guard, along with Kiba and Akamaru, who smelled any danger long before eye contact. After making sure that Inada and Resetsu were resting peacefully and that Karena and took over the next shift, Naruto settled into his post. Kiba, leaning on the trunk of a century-old tree, exchanged news with Akamaru in a low voice, while Naruto absent-mindedly watched the foliage. Suddenly, a strange sound like a soft whistle, coming from the nearby thicket, distracted him. Kiba was instantly silent and abused the ear, sniffing the air. Akamaru growled a warning of danger. Naruto quickly created a pair of shadow clones and silently directed them towards the origin of the sound. Soon one of the clones returned and said with surprise in his voice, "Guys, it seems that there is a missing child. A 5 or 6-year-old boy. He is injured and unconscious." Kiba and Naruto exchanged glances, aware of the sensitivity of the situation. On the one hand, the child clearly needed help. On the other hand, in these wild lands, it could be the bait of another trap. Determined not to take any chances, Kiba cautiously approached the place indicated by the clone, sniffing carefully. Akamaru nodded confidently, making it clear that he didn't feel any obvious danger. A couple of minutes later, Kiba returned, carefully carrying in his arms a thin blonde guy with scrapes and scratches all over his body. His eyes were closed, and he was breathing hard. "There are no signs of enemies," Kiba whispered. "He seems to be very lonely, lost in this desert." Naruto frowned at the sight of the unconscious child. His condition was deplorable. "I definitely needed urgent help. We have to show it to Karena and Sensei," and Naruto decided. "She will be able to assess the situation and provide first aid." and then we'll decide what to do." With these words, he set out for his camp. Kiva followed him with the child in his arms. Akamaru and the Naruto clone stayed with them to cover their rear. Kushina and, having skillfully examined the child, drew conclusions. He has obviously been through something difficult, but his life is not in danger yet. I'll administer first aid to stabilize him. And at dawn, we will decide what measures to take. At dawn, after a short but necessary break, Team 8 met to discuss the next step. The child found that Knight was still unconscious after the first aid that Kushina received and, "What are we going to do with the baby?" Naruto asked in a lucid voice, carefully observing the boy's serene face. "We can't leave him alone in this desert." "Of course not," Kushina replied decisively. "He is wounded and lost. To abandon him is to condemn him to certain death. But dragging him with you is a big risk to our mission," Kiva intervened. "It can delay us or even betray us to the enemies." And Nada timidly commented, "But he's just a kid. We can't abandon him." "Of course he didn't," nod Kushina. "Kiva is right, this could interfere with the task. But I still suggest that we take it with us and take it to the nearest town to hand it over or to the local authorities." She looked sternly at her pupils. "We are shinobi from Konoha. Indifference and cruelty are not alien. Saving lives is our main mission. If you have to choose between the easy way and the right way, duty dictates that you choose the right one." The team bowed their heads respectfully, approving of the mentor's knowing words. Kushina already felt with satisfaction and continued, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Naruto, create a couple of clones and use them to charge the child in turns with Kiva. Thus the burden will be distributed equitably. And you, Inata, will constantly monitor his vital signs with a Byakugan in case his condition worsens. I will focus on protecting our client. Any questions?" The Genis shook their heads vigorously. The elderly merchant Risetsu, still stunned by all the adventures, watched the team of young heroes with amazement. Soon, the detachment set off on a new and difficult march through the forest thicket, trying to accelerate as much as possible. The Naruto clones took turns carrying the unconscious child, while Kiba and Akamaru walked in front, sniffing out any signs of ambush. And Nada constantly used the Yakugan, controlling the state of the child and protecting the rearguard. They walked like this without stopping, with only brief stops to rest. Risetsu narrowed his eyes in amazement at the unflappable Jennings, who carried heavy loads without complaining or asking. Leaving the thick of the forest behind, the team finally reached the borders of the country of fire. The fishing village of Iwagakure was already in sight, peacefully located on the shores of a large lake. As they approached the village, Kushina indicated to the team to stop and gather to receive the last instructions. "Great, kid. We're almost there. Now the important thing is to stay alert until the end of the route. Tierra del Fuego is considered a safe territory, but many gangster groups prefer to trade in the border areas." He watched his GS, proudly observing their steadfastness and determination, even after many days of exhausting transition. Kushina's special gaze and landed on the unconscious child, who had been carefully carried by the Naruto clones, one after another. Along with Kiba all this time. "And Nada, how is the child?" asked Honorable Unconcerned. "He is still unconscious, but his vital signs are stable," Yuga replied, deactivating the Yakugan. "Your help has clearly helped him." Kushina was already relieved. "Well then, as soon as we enter the village, we will immediately hand him over to the local authorities. Come on, we're almost there." The team resumed their march, keeping a close eye on the surroundings in case there was any danger. They soon reached the settlement and passed through the village gate without incident. In the center of Iwagakure, representatives of the local administration were already waiting for them, along with several guards. Apparently, his arrival was expected. Kushina and shook the hand of the village chief, a former ally of Konoha. He then described in detail the situation of the found child and requested that appropriate medical attention be provided to him, and that he be transferred to his family if any. The head of Iwagakure assured that the child would be temporarily placed under supervision in one of the shelters, and only then would they try to recover his identity and family. After a short period of paperwork, the team was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. His first mission would be out that he had not come to an end. Despite all the obstacles, they fulfilled the assigned task with honor. Kushina and looked at her students with a proud smile. A deep respect for these young shinobi, who showed remarkable strength, courage and loyalty to their duty, was kindled in his heart. After a couple of days of rest, the team returned safely to their native Konoha, completing their first real test as shinobi. Upon arrival in Konoha, the team went directly to the Okage residence to receive a standard report on the results of the mission. And Ruzen Sarutobi received them with his characteristic wise smile, attentively listening to the detailed story of Kushina. "Well done. I'm glad everything went relatively well on your first outing," the location nodded approvingly. "Despite the complications with the attacks of the robbers and the found child, you have shown serenity, solidarity, and dedication to duty. This is worthy of a real Konoha shinobi." The genin involuntarily straightened up at such praise, full of pride. Naruto shot a quick glance at Anko, who was a little further away. His adoptive mother returned the wink affectionately. "However," continued Irizen, smoking his pipe, "it seems that the boy's secret is still unsolved. Is there any clue about his identity?" Kushina shook her head. "Cool, Okage-sama. In Iwegakura, we asked the locals, but no one knew the boy or which village he came from. There was no identification mark on it. The head of the settlement promised to take him to a shelter and try to find out something. It's a pity," Irizen sighed. "I wouldn't want such a young man to be orphaned." "Well, I hope he finds his home. And you can go to rest with a well-deserved sense of accomplishment." The Jennings made a ceremonious bow and had already turned to leave when the Okage added, "Wait a minute. Before you go, I'd like to ask Naruto one more question." Naruto turned to Irizen in surprise. The man was watching him with an attentive and observant gaze. "Naruto, what did you think your first mission would be outside of Konoha? Did it help you to better understand your path as a shinobi?" Naruto thought for a moment, choosing his words. "It was a difficult test, Okage-sama. But I have learned a lot, the value of teamwork, the importance of foresight and resilience. I understood that being a shinobi is not only about fighting, but also about protecting, helping those in need, and making difficult decisions. This strengthened my determination to become the great shinobi of Konoha who will protect my native village and its inhabitants." Irisina felt approvingly and smiled affectionately. "Excellent answer, Naruto. I see that you have learned the right lessons in your first field experience. Keep it up and I'm sure you'll get very far." After these words, the Okage finally released them. Team 8 left the residence brimming with pride and enthusiasm. Meanwhile, everyone went home. Naruto went to his room with Anko. On the way, they animatedly discussed the details of the mission. "You were great, son," Anko said proudly, patting Naruto on the shoulder. "Especially when I repelled that ambush of the mercenaries. Do you remember how cleverly you scattered them with your clones?" Naruto flashed a wide smile. "Yeah, it was a great moment. Kushina and Sensei have trained us well during these months. But the most difficult thing was to take that boy to the border with the river country." Anko nodded. "Yeah, it's lucky you picked it up. They did the right thing, worthy of the shinobi of Konoha. Although they could not complicate the task. But he was just a kid," exclaimed Naruto, "we couldn't leave him. As Kushina and Sensei said, a shinobi's duty is to protect lives." Anko smiled and ruffled his hair. "That's right, that's how I raised you, you're a real hero, Naruto." Upon arriving at his apartment, Anko bumped into Naruto's shoulders. "Well, enough of the reminiscing. Rest well now. But not for long. I'll be waiting for you in a couple of days for an advanced ninjutsu training. It won't be easy." Naruto rolled his eyes happily. "Cool, Mom, everything you do is harassment." They burst out laughing out loud and entered the apartment, happy and brimming with energy after a successful mission. A few days after returning from his first serious mission, Naruto enthusiastically began an intensive training with Anko. His adoptive mother, just as she had promised, decided to give him a real training to prepare him for the upcoming Chunin exam. So that's it, Naruto, Anko began sternly, standing in the middle of the training ground. To become a Chunin, you will have to work hard. Courage and perseverance alone will not be enough. Advanced skills and versatility will be needed. Naruto nodded decisively, clenching his fists. I'm ready for anything, Mom. Teach me the best techniques to impress everyone in the exam. Anko smiled at such enthusiasm. It will be for you, but remember that it will not be easy. First, let's focus on your ninjutsu. Show me that you also master the shadow cloning technique. Naruto quickly folded the stamps and released a dozen perfect copies of himself. The clones happily greeted Anko. Not bad, Kunoichi nodded approvingly. Now make them fight each other, using different attack styles and combinations. The clones immediately launched into battle, demonstrating their perfected hand-to-hand combat technique and the use of weapons. Anko watched the fight intently, taking notes from time to time. I see that you have mastered the basics of taijutsu and cloning well. It's time to move on to more advanced techniques. Now I will teach you the technique of summoning snakes, my specialty. Naruto's eyes lit up. Wow, snakes. It's going to be a blast. Come on, show me how it's done. Anko smiled smugly and began to explain the intricacies of the reptilian summoning technique. He showed the necessary stamps and gestures and explained how to sign a contract with snakes. Naruto listened carefully to every word, striving to master the new technique as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Kiba and Jimata also trained hard under Kurenai's guidance, honing their clan's skills. Kurenai paid special attention to the development of Kiba's sense of smell, teaching him to track his opponents by the slightest whiff of great distances. Akamaru also participated in these classes, learning how to synchronize with the host. And he kills Kureina and taught more sophisticated techniques of soft fist and the expansion of the Yakugan's reach. The shy Yuga gradually learned to reveal her potential and gain self-confidence. After a couple of weeks of intensive training, Team 8 got together for a joint practice. Naruto proudly demonstrated his new snake technique to his classmates, leaving them speechless with admiration. Kiva, in turn, surprised everyone with its incredible accuracy in detecting hidden targets using smell. And Nada showed impressive agility and precision in her punches during sparring. They have made significant progress in mastering new techniques and have improved their teamwork. One day, when the exam was only a week away, she took care and gathered her students for an important conversation. They have done a great job, and I am very proud of their success. She started with a warm smile. I am sure they will do brilliantly in the exam. But remember that the most important thing is not to win, but how you support each other and work as a team. Naruto nodded vigorously. Don't worry, Kureina and Sensei. We will not let you down. Really, guys. Kiva smiled and patted him on the shoulder. That's right. Akamaru and I are in the best shape and ready to tear them all apart. And Nada also smiled sheepishly and nodded, clearly encouraged by the words of her companions. He has become much stronger in these months. That's the attitude. Kureina and winked at them approvingly. Now they will have a few days of rest before the exam. Dedicate it to recovering and preparing your team. And don't forget to practice your new techniques to perfect them. Yes, Sensei. The trio answered in unison and excitedly returned home. Naruto decided to visit Anko and brag about his achievements. He found his adoptive mother at an ordinary training camp where she selflessly threw kunai at targets. Hey, Mom. He called Anko. Anko turned around and smiled when he saw Naruto. Cool, kid. How were your workouts? Am I ready for the exam? I'm in really good shape. Naruto replied enthusiastically. Anko mischievously narrowed her eyes. Really? Then maybe we can test your skills. Show me how you use the kunai. We fought. Naruto's eyes lit up with excitement, and he quickly pulled out a gun. Mother and son enthusiastically joined in a combat drill, clanging with metal and throwing each other kunai. Meanwhile, Kiba and Jimata also decided to have a hand-to-hand combat to consolidate their skills. They faced off in hand-to-hand combat, using the techniques of their clan and working together with Akamaru. Despite the obvious progress, Hinata still had problems with stamina and confidence, and missed Kiba's painful punches. This did not escape Inuzuki's attention. Interrupting the training, he asked with compassion, "Hey, Hinata, are you okay? I see you're struggling with hand-to-hand combat. Are you worried about something?" Hinata shuddered and lowered her gaze, visibly uncomfortable. He was always embarrassed to talk about his weaknesses. "It's simple. I still don't feel strong enough. I'm afraid I won't be able to help the team in anything during the exam. Unlike you and Naruto." Kiva frowned and suddenly put a hand would be on his shoulder. "Listen, Hinata, you are not inferior to us in anything. Your role in the team is irreplaceable, especially with your Yakugan and your tracking skills. I'm sure you'll save our skins more than once in the exam. Just believe in yourself." And Nada looked at him in amazement, visibly moved by his words of support. A slight blush drew on her cheeks. "Thank you, Kiva. It means a lot to me. I promise I will believe in myself and our team." Kiva smiled approvingly and slapped her on the back, causing Hinata to almost crash face first into the ground. Akamaru barked happily. "That's another conversation. And now let's repeat the combination that Kureina and Sensei showed. You see, with your help we will remember her." And Nada smiled beaming, and joined Kiba with renewed enthusiasm to practice the combat package. Her friend's words seemed to inspire and strengthen her. Finally, the day came when genis from other hidden villages started coming to Konoha to participate in the exam. The whole village was abuzz with excitement and anticipation at the impending large-scale event. Naruto, Kiba, and Jimata met at the meeting point agreed upon by the teams, curiously watching the incoming rivals. There were also tough guys from the Hidden Stone, arrogant shinobi from the Hidden Cloud, and mysterious genis from the Hidden Mist. Everyone looked formidable and determined. "Wow, this is a competition." Silbeck was going, looking at the crowd enthusiastically. "Do you think we can make it?" Naruto just smiled and punched his fists. "Yes, easy. We're a super cool team now." "Really, Hinata?" The girl shuddered slightly at the unexpected question, but then nodded decisively, clenching her fists. "Yes, I believe in us. We have trained a lot, and we will not disappoint." To Kureina and Sensei. At that moment, the mentor, accompanied by Anko, approached them. Both Kunoichi looked very serious and focused. "So, dear Genins, you have already waited for your best moment," Kureina began and solemnly. "In a few minutes, the first one is waiting for you. The stage of the Chun exam in a written test. Don't be surprised, it's not as simple as it seems. The main thing is not to panic or act discreetly. And don't try to cheat, or you'll leave right away." Anko added insistently, her eyes shining. "But if something happens, I trust you. Especially you, Naruto. Don't disappoint mommy." Naruto scratched his head in embarrassment, and Kiba and Jimata hid their smiles. They knew that behind Anko's brusqueness was hidden a sincere concern and affection for their adopted son. "We will not let you down, Kureina and Sensei, Anko-sensei." The trio bowed. At that moment, a loud beep announced the start of the exam. Genes from all over started to enter the big academy building in an organized way. "Best of luck. Remember, you are a team." Kureina and said goodbye to them. Naruto, Kiba, and Hinata exchanged determined glances and advanced together, ready to conquer the peaks. The first stage of the exam was waiting for them with seemingly simple written tasks. The genis took their seats in a huge auditorium, surrounded by dozens of competitors, and the Chunin examiners watching them intently. Naruto eagerly grabbed his homework sheet, but soon realized that he did not understand anything about these intricate riddles and logical clues. He started sweating and looking around desperately, wondering how he hadn't been able to suspend the team from the beginning. "Naruto, calm down," he mentally ordered himself. Kureina and Sensei hinted that there was some kind of trick and that the main thing was to act with discretion. "Maybe we should try to spy on each other's answers without anyone seeing us. That guy with the glasses from the hidden arena seems to be writing with a lot of intelligence." Naruto squinted his eyes to observe his neighbor's form as discreetly as possible, but immediately met the penetrating gaze of one of the examiners. He spat and hurriedly looked at his leaf. Grunting to himself, Naruto tried to concentrate and solve at least a couple of examples on his own. But numbers and letters stubbornly refused to form meaningful combinations. At that moment, Naruto noticed how Akamaru, on Kiba's head, began to moan and move his ears almost imperceptibly. He instantly realized that the dog was passing the spied answers to his master. Kiba pretended to scratch the back of his head while listening intently for Akamaru's signals. Naruto admired their teamwork. "I wish I could. Too bad snakes can't read," he thought enviously. Suddenly, Naruto felt someone gently touching his leg under the desk. He looked down surprised and saw that Hinata was imperceptibly passing him a paper with notes. When their gazes crossed, the girl blushed embarrassed, but her eyes flashed with determination. Naruto quickly grabbed the paper and hid it under his letterhead, giving Hinata a look full of gratitude. He rejoiced inside, quickly copying his girlfriend's decisions on his sheet. He realized that Hinata should have used her Yakugan to figure out the right answers and help him. After half an hour of intense mental effort, the signal for the end of the first stage sounded. Naruto pushed the form away with relief. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that Kiba and Jimata had also completed the task quite successfully. The examiners quickly picked up the papers and went out for a review and a meeting. "Phew, what a mess!" exclaimed Kiba, leaning back in his chair. "I did not understand anything about these codes. I thought it would make my brain boil." "Sure," Naruto nodded. "If it wasn't for you and Nata, I would have definitely flown." "You're great." And Nata blushed and lowered her gaze at the compliments, but pride was reflected in her eyes. "The K-team should act together, right? We promised not to be disappointed." Naruto slapped him on the back in approval, which made Imada almost fly out of the chair. "And they didn't disappoint you. With such a team, we can with Chunin himself." At that moment, the door opened wide, and one of the examiners appeared on the threshold with a sinister smile. This examiner was Anko Mitarasi. The Jennings were instantly silent, waiting for the verdict. Anko looked at the silent Jennings sternly and slowly said, Well, little ones, they did a good job in the first exam. But it's too early to relax. The next stage of the exam will be 100 times more difficult and dangerous. Will they be able to cheat with the same cunning in a real fight?" "Ha, ha." A nervous laugh echoed through the audience. The genin looked at each other askance, wondering what the examiner was talking about. Naruto held Anko's gaze for an instant and saw a faint spark of approval in them. She immediately realized that Mom was just acting like a strict examiner. In fact, she is proud that he was able to find a way out and cheer the team on. Naruto nodded barely perceptibly and hid a smile. Anko clapped her hands, attracting everyone's attention. "Well, enough of the chatter. Congratulations to those who, somehow, managed to master this exam and achieve the minimum score to pass. They have officially passed the first stage of the Chunin exam. But don't get excited ahead of time. From now on, it's only going to get harder. Now you have 2 hours to prepare. After that, everyone must arrive at the 44th training camp for the next test. This is the so-called Forest of Death. I think the name clearly indicates what awaits them there. Gather all the necessary equipment and supplies, and get ready to demonstrate all your strength and cunning. Ready, you can be free." The Jennings made a noise, talking animatedly and discussing what they had heard. Naruto paid no attention to them. He got up from his desk and walked towards his friends. "Well, guys, we only have a couple of hours to get ready. Let's quickly analyze the strategy and review the equipment. Something tells me it's going to be very hot in this Forest of Death." "Of course." Kiba smiled. "Akamaru and I are ready for anything. I will fight my way through." "That one, yes, I'll do my best too." Hinata stammered, clenching her fists in a strange outburst of determination. Naruto patted his friends on the shoulders approvingly and together they headed for the exit. She saw Anko winking at her, saying goodbye, and felt a surge of pride. Mom believes in him. I would never let her down. When Team 8 left the auditorium, they saw that a group of Jennings had gathered in the hallway. The center of attention turned out to be a tall guy with glasses, who was saying something to others with an intelligent look. "Hey, Hinata, who is it?" Naruto asked in a whisper, nodding at the man with the glasses. Hinata watched the stranger attentively. According to the registration data, his name is Kabuto Yakushi. He's the ninja with the hidden blade, but I don't know him. It seems that this is not the first time you have participated in the Chunin exam. Naruto frowned. He didn't remember it either. It is strange that the most experienced genin could not pass the exam earlier. Suddenly, an arrogant voice emerged from the crowd. "Hey, smartass. They say you have information about all the participants. So tell us about some." Naruto turned to the voice and saw Sasuke Uchiha himself. He was standing with his arms crossed and looking at Kabuto haughtily. Kabuto smiled mischievously and adjusted his glasses. "No problem, Sasuke-kun. I have information of all applicants, including foreign shinobi. Just tell me the names and I'll share what I know." Sasuke's gaze swept through the crowd and settled on Naruto. The man involuntarily tensed, waiting for his next words. But Uchiha suddenly smiled and said, "To begin with, I'm interested in this redhead from the Hidden Sand. It gives off a murderous aura. And Rogel, from our village. They say he is very good at taijutsu." After a moment of hesitation, he added with a barely perceptible smile, "Tell me also about Naruto Mitarashi. I'm curious to know what you've learned over the years." Naruto gritted his teeth, holding back a furious rebuke. How I wish to erase that smug smile from Yuki's face. But now is not the time or the place for a showdown. He simply looked away, pretending that he didn't care about Sasuke's provocations. Kabuto nodded and took out a wad of information cards from his fanny pack. "Yes, I found it here. The redhead's name is Gaara. He's the youngest son of the 4th Kazekage and Hinchiriki of the Demon of a Tail Shukaku. He has already completed 8 B rank and 1 A rank missions. They say you can't play with him, he's a sand monster that just wants to kill." Sasuke chuckled with satisfaction, and a frightened murmur ran through the crowd. Naruto felt an unpleasant chill. He glanced sideways at Gaara, and her gaze met his. There was something dark and eerie in Sandastone's impassive eyes. "Let's continue," Kabuto said calmly. "Rogel, student of Meidogui. He's 13 years old. Missions 20 rank D, 12 rank C. His main skills are taijutsu, and teamwork with his teammates Neji Yuga and Tenten." Neji. And Nada shuddered when she heard the name of her cousin. Naruto knew that his family had a difficult relationship due to disagreements between the branches, the clan's primary and secondary. It seems that they will also have to face each other in the exam. Kabuto kept going through the cards until he found one and whistled in surprise. "Wow! Here comes Naruto Mitarashi in person. The adopted son of our examiner Anko Mitarashi. I wonder how much he learned from his mother." Before he could finish, Naruto himself sneaked up and deftly snatched the card from him. He quickly scanned the text, grunted and broke it in half naturally. "I think we're done with this," Naruto said with a smile and leaned towards Kabuto so that their faces were on the same level. "You will find out everything about me directly on the exam. You don't need to reveal your letters before, do you?" Kabuto was a little taken aback by such impudence, but quickly pulled himself together and smiled. "Whatever you say, Naruto-kun. I am very curious to know what you are capable of after learning from Mitarashi-sensei." Naruto narrowed his eyes and lowered his voice to a barely audible whisper. "I see that you know a lot about all the participants. Aren't you spying on someone, you idiot?" Kabuto froze for a moment, and then he extended his hands in a conciliatory manner and smiled nervously. "Come on, Naruto-kun, what kind of spy am I? I love collecting all kinds of information, it's my hobby. Nothing criminal, I swear." But Naruto kept looking at him suspiciously, sensing that something was wrong with him. I was about to ask him a couple of more complicated questions, but Kiva intervened. "Hey, Naruto, everything is ready for the Inquisition now. It's time to get going before the man with the glasses comes up with something else to research about us. Naruto reluctantly nodded and walked away from Kabuto, looking at him with a meaningful look. Then he turned to his friends and pointed with his hand to the exit. Let's get out of here. It's not good for real shinobi to go around scratching their tongues. The forest of death is waiting for us. With these words, he turned around and walked away, sincerely enjoying the effect. Kiba and Jimata ran after him, trying to ignore the whispers and curious looks from all sides. It seems that Naruto's joke did not go unnoticed. Team 8 left the academy and headed to the training camp. On the way, Kiba whistled admiringly and slapped Naruto on the shoulder. Come on, buddy. Did you see how everyone was looking at you after your card trick? Now I'm sure almost everyone will be afraid to contact you. Naruto smiled smugly and casually shrugged his shoulders. That's it. Let them know that Naruto Mitarashi cannot be played with. Especially if you suspect that something is wrong. And Nada smiled shyly and added, You were very cool, Naruto-kun. Although this Kabuto seemed really suspicious to me. How did he get so much information? Naruto frowned and scratched his head thoughtfully. That's what interests me. He is too wise to be a mere genius. It's already scary. I'll have to look at it more closely on the exam. I don't like this at all. On the way to training camp number 44, known as the Forest of Death, Naruto and his companions noticed that other genin teams had already gathered. Everyone seemed focused and tense, anticipating the upcoming test. Suddenly, someone called Naruto in a familiar, lazy voice. Hey, Naruto, what a long time. As usual, you're making a fuss all over the neighborhood. Mitarashi turned around and smiled, recognizing one of his best friends. Is that you, Shikamaru? I did not think that you would take this difficult exam. Did you really decide to come down from the clouds? Nara smiled and scratched her face. Head. Yes, Asuma-sensei said it's time for us to apply our skills in real situations. What can I do? I'll have to try a little harder. What a mess. His faithful companion Choji appeared next to Shikamaru, eating chips from a bag as he walked. He waved his hand at her amiably. Hello, Naruto. Ready to beat the crap out of everyone on this exam. I have saved food to have strength. Naruto burst out laughing and patted his friend on the chubby shoulder. Sure, I choked. During these months, the guys and I have become very good at working as a team. You'll see, we'll do everything. Shikamaru shot an interested glance at Kiba and Hinata, who were standing behind Naruto. Yeah, I see you have a wrestling team. Inuzuka with his dog, and Yuga with Byakugan are golden beams. Kiba sat up proudly and Jimata blushed, lowering his gaze. Naruto put his arm around his friend's shoulders and fervently exclaimed, Sure. My boys are amazing. Kiba can track anyone by smell, and Jimata detects any trick with his huge eyes. Well, me. Now I can summon snakes as well as Anko. The genuine surprise was reflected on Shikamaru's face. Wow, how awesome. It sounds like your foster mom has trained you well. With those skills, your team is a real threat to the rest. Naruto laughed smugly and suddenly became serious. By the way, do you know what kind of guy is that Kabuto who hands out files to everyone? It's too suspicious. Shikamaru rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Mom, I've heard that it's not the first time you've passed this exam. It's strange that such an informed shinobi is still genin. There's something really weird here. Ochoji swallowed nervously and looked around. Do you think he could be a spy? What if he is collecting information for some enemy village? Naruto nodded grimly. That's what I'm talking about. We have to be alert and keep an eye on this smart guy. Who knows what he's up to? And Nada timidly raised her voice. Maybe we should tell either the sensei or the examiners. What if it is some kind of deception or sabotage? Kiba scratched his chin and stretched hesitantly. Well, we're unlikely to be believed without proof. They will say that we are panicking from the very beginning. We'll find out for ourselves, won't we, Naruto? Mitarashi clenched his fist decisively. Of course. We are no longer children to turn to our elders for any reason. We'll advance alone, and I'll catch that Kabuto myself, if anything. The friends applauded him enthusiastically, supporting Naruto's fighting spirit. They knew that they could always count on him in difficult moments. Suddenly, Anko Mitarasi's voice echoed throughout the training ground, calling all the Genings to gather at the door. The boys exchanged glances and hurried forward so as not to be late. "Well, that's it," Shikamaru sighed. "Well, Naruto, I'll see you at the exam. Don't fuck up." Naruto simply smiled in response. "Don't even dream about them. It is better not to do it yourself, or you will dishonor the glorious name of Nara." The friends exchanged complicit smiles and scattered, each to his team. Soon, an impressive crowd of genin gathered in front of the gates of the Forest of Death. Encoles directed his characteristic sadistic gaze and screamed, "So, young people, listen up. Now they must enter the Forest of Death and get to scrolls from heaven and earth in 3 days. But it will be very difficult to get them. In the forest, not only other teams are waiting for them, ready to tear their throats out for the scrolls, but also all kinds of creepy creatures, traps and poisonous plants." A nervous murmur ran through the crowd of Genings. Some turned noticeably pale and trembled. Anko smiled, enjoying the effect. "And one more thing," he said, slurring the words with a threatening tone. "Before entering the forest, they must sign these charming papers, accepting that, in case of sudden death, Konoha will not have any responsibility. So think carefully about whether you are willing to risk your lives for the precious title of Chunin." With these words, he threw a bunch of forms into the crowd, which the genin began to sort out in a hurry. Team 8 also received 1 paper per person. Naruto quickly went through the depressing text of the waiver and signed it with an elegant gesture, without hesitating for a second. He believed in himself and his team. Kiba and Jimata did the same, although the girl paled noticeably. "That's it, guys, we're about to our main battle," Naruto said earnestly, folding the form. "Whatever happens in this forest, remember we are a team. Trust each other and don't try to be heroes alone, it can cost you your life." Kiba and Jimata nodded solemnly, imbued with the importance of the moment. They understood that the upcoming test was not just an exam, but a test of their friendship and loyalty. "When it's over, we'll have a real party," Naruto winked at him. "Let's celebrate our ascent to Chunin. So to give everything." The friends smiled radiantly, inspired by that simple promise. It was worth a try. At that moment, Anko ordered them to form up at the gate, and the Genings rushed over, dividing their teams. Naruto smiled encouragingly at Kiba and Jimata one last time, and then moved forward with determination. The Forest of Death was waiting for its victims, and Team 8 was determined to go in and win. As soon as they crossed the border of the sinister forest, the atmosphere changed drastically. The tension in the air became almost palpable. Shadowy giant trees loomed over them, blocking the sunlight. An alarming silence reigned around them, broken occasionally by ominous creaks and distant shouts. Naruto looked at his companions and ordered, "Well, guys, the deal is this. We have to find a team with an Earth Scroll and take it to them. And Nada, check the surroundings with the Yakugan. Kiva, try to smell other people's smells. In the meantime, I'll be summoning the scout snakes." The friends nodded and got down to business. And Mata activated his unique eyes and began to explore the forest. Kiva and Akamaru sniffed, trying to make out strange smells. Naruto quickly pulled out a scroll and, biting his finger, drew a bloody line on the paper. A second later, 3 small snakes appeared in front of him. "Disperse into the forest and look for other Genings," he ordered the reptiles. "As soon as you find him, let me know immediately." The snakes obediently slithered in different directions, and Naruto turned to his companions. "Well, have you seen anyone?" And Nada narrowed her eyes and nodded. "Yes, there is movement a couple of kilometers to the northeast. Looks like there's another team there." Kiva barked in confirmation and sniffed. "That's right, I smell a human smell in that direction too. They don't seem to hide much." Naruto clenched his fist decisively. "Great, then let's try to take them somewhere warm. But be careful, we don't know what they are capable of. Come on." Team 8 quickly and quietly jumped through the branches in the indicated direction. The first goal was in sight. Soon they saw 3 hidden rain boys who had camped in a clearing. The Jennings looked tired and exhausted, but still kept a blind eye. Naruto instructed his friends to hide among the foliage and began to observe the enemies, devising a plan of attack. The alignment did not favor the rain shinobi. They were famous for their ability to handle the water element and lay ingenious traps. Suddenly, Hinata whispered, "They have a scroll of the earth. I see it in that guy's bag with the bandage." Naruto's heart just turned over. Had they really gotten lucky so quickly? However, it was not worth relaxing. I knew it wouldn't be an easy victory. "So this is the plan," Naruto began in a weak voice. "Kiva, you and Akamaru are distracting them with your clones. And Cream, sneak in and grab the scroll. And I will cover you with my genjutsu. In any case, we will go into the forest immediately. Don't be heroic. You understand everything." The friends nodded, gathering courage. They understood that the first fight would be decisive in many ways. Failure could undermine their confidence, and success inspire them. Then, on the count of 3 whispered Naruto. 1, 2. But he didn't have time to finish. At that moment, a dark shadow silently emerged from the foliage right behind them and launched a shower of fine poison needles at the rain jeans. 2 men gasped and collapsed to the ground, hit by the poison. The third jumped up and ran, placing a crib and in front of him, but immediately received a powerful kick in the face and fainted. Naruto and his team looked at the sudden ally in amazement and recognized Kabuto. He adjusted his glasses calmly and smiled. "Looks like I got here just in time. You definitely wouldn't have been able to handle all 3. Naruto's cheeks flushed with indignation. "Why is that? We would have killed them in a heartbeat. And besides, what are you doing here, watching us?" Kabuto extended his hands in a conciliatory manner. "Take it easy, Naruto-kun. I stopped by and saw that you could use some help. You were too clumsy to take them." Kiva frowned and grunted. "We would have done very well on our own, without your advice and help." But Hinata timidly objected. "Wait a minute, guys. Maybe we should thank Kabuto-san. He helped us a lot." Naruto gritted his teeth, but he had to admit that she was right. Anyway, the man with the glasses really helped them, although without asking. He grudgingly growled. "Okay, thanks for the help, Kabuto. But next time we'll do it alone, okay?" He just laughed condescendingly and nodded his head towards the defeated Jennings. "Whatever you say. By the way, you were going to pick up his scroll? There it is, in the bag." Naruto perked up and quickly searched the indicated bag. And, sure enough, the coveted earth scroll appeared in the light. Mitarashi beamed and held up his booty in triumph. "Yes. There's one ready, there's only one left." Kabuto smiled approvingly and waved goodbye. "Well, I have to go. Best of luck, guys. Be careful and stay tuned." With these words, he winked at her provocatively and vanished among the trees as quickly and quietly as if he had never existed. Naruto watched him warily as he left and turned to his friends. "What a guy. Huh. He's around like he's lost. You better keep an eye on your team." Kiva grunted in agreement, and Jimata looked thoughtfully at Kabuto. "Hey, but it really helped us. Maybe it's not so bad." Naruto shrugged his shoulders irritably. "We'll see. I don't trust him anyway. Now let's get out of here before the guy with the glasses puts someone suspicious on our trail." Team 8 quickly left the scene of the battle, taking the trophy scroll with him. But Naruto was distraught. It was too timely for Kabuto to appear on his way. I was determined to keep an eye on him. Such helpers are even worse than declared enemies. After a while, Naruto, Kiba and Jimata set up camp in a cozy little clearing, sitting around an improvised campfire. While Hinata and Akamaru were on duty, Naruto decided to practice genjutsu. I knew that illusions could be a trump card in battle. Despite his tiredness, he couldn't stop thinking about the strange behavior of Kabuto and decided to use this time not only to improve his skills, but also to consider the possible motives of the mysterious genin. "Hey, Kiva, let me practice with you," offered Mitarashi enthusiastically. "Let's see if you recognize my techniques." Inuzuka growled skeptically, but nodded. He stood in front of his friend and crossed his arms, showing that he was ready. Naruto smiled and folded the stamps, creating an illusion in Kiva. After a second, Kiva closed his eyes tightly, shook his head, and let go, irritated. "Well, what kind of kindergarten is this, Naruto? I see that you multiplied and did not change the environment." A little weak. Mitarashi frowned, but did not give up. He concentrated again, and this time, he created a more realistic image. The clearing around the Kiba began to float and change, turning into quicksand. Inuzuka was startled and tried to free himself, but he got stuck even more. "It's better that way," she exclaimed approvingly. "I almost believed it. But with a little willpower, I can still dispel it, do you understand?" And sure enough, after a couple of seconds, the illusion crumbled, and Kiba stepped back on solid ground. Naruto grimaced in annoyance, but then perked up. "But now I know what my weaknesses are. I will train harder so that even you can't recognize my genjutsu." Kiva gave him a respectful pat on the shoulder. Come on, maybe you'll cheat someone on the exam. And now to sleep, if not, Hinata will call us on call very soon." Naruto nodded in agreement, and the friends lay down around the campfire, covered with their sleeping bags. Hinata's night watch passed quietly and without incident. At dawn, the team gathered around a campfire to gather supplies before heading into the forest in search of the second scroll. But very soon, the first problem surprised them. And Nata, who was still observing the surroundings with her Yakugan even during breakfast, suddenly gasped and whispered, "There is noise and movement further on. There seems to be a battle between several teams." Naruto sat up instantly and made a gesture for everyone to hide. They crept closer and peered from behind the trees. What they saw shocked them. A serious battle was going on in a small clearing. On the one hand, the team of Dichino, Shikamaru, and Choji participated. Apparently, they were protecting the unconscious Team 7. Naruto recognized Sasuke with a shiver, lying on the ground, writhing in pain. Sakura was sobbing on her knees next to her, and a man in sunglasses, unknown to Naruto, was lying a little further away. They were up against 3 sinister-looking ninjas from Eden-san. One of them, Zakwabumi, extended his arms and seemed to control invisible air waves, which Hino and the others barely dodged. Next to him, a gloomy girl with long black hair, Kintsuchi, was throwing a bunch of senbons with bells at her opponents. And a little further away stood Dosu Kinuta, whose right forearm was wrapped in a strange device that emitted sound waves. Naruto clenched his fists, feeling the anger boiling inside him as he saw the torment of his comrades. Launching a frontal attack against such strong opponents would be unwise. But he also couldn't leave his friends in distress. And then Genjutsu understood it. Months of grueling training were not in vain. "It's time to apply your skills." Naruto turned to Kaibayamata and whispered, trying to keep his voice from shaking. "I have a plan. I will immerse them in an illusion, and at this moment, they will take our people out and leave. The main thing is to act quickly and stealthily." The friends nodded, gathering courage. Naruto took a deep breath, folded the stamps, and concentrated on the images of the soundtracks. He imagined how reality was distorted around him, and suddenly his worst fears appeared in the middle of the battle. Orochimaru himself appeared in front of the 3, shaking his head in disgust. The sound engineers stood transfixed, startled by what they saw. Their attacks ceased, and terror distorted their faces. They began to look around confused and to mumble something. "Now," he ordered Naruto. Kiba and Jimata rushed forward and, with an ultra-fast movement, picked up their injured comrades. In a matter of seconds, they disappeared into the undergrowth. Team 10 immediately ran after them. When the illusion faded, the sound engineers realized that it was too late. "Damn, we've been fooled. What a powerful genjutsu. Squawk to you, we have to run after them." But Zaku shook his head. "It's useless. They have probably already hidden in their hiding place. Sasuke is still not a tenant after the seal of Orochimaru-sama. Let's finish this stupid test." The sound engineers looked at each other with disgust, but did not object. They turned around and disappeared into the forest. Meanwhile, Naruto led his friends along a confusing path until they reached a huge hollow trunk of an ancient tree. The huge trunk was almost completely hidden behind dense undergrowth. This natural refuge was the perfect place to hide from pursuers. There you could catch your breath with peace of mind and take care of the injured. Sakura bent anxiously over Sasuke, who was still writhing in pain. Her eyes were full of tears, but she tried to keep her composure. "Thanks, guys. They saved us. I don't know what we would have done without you." And he did not snort and tossed his hair back indifferently. "You have nothing to do. You meet all kinds of weaklings. And this is called the best team in the academy." Sakura blushed, but did not respond. And Jimata timidly asked, "What happened to Sasuke-san? Why is he suffering so much?" Everyone looked at each other, but no one had time to answer. At that moment, Uchiha suddenly opened her eyes and sat up abruptly. Sinister black patterns ran through her body, and her iris turned purple. "Sasuke, are you okay?" Sakura was alarmed. But Sasuke didn't seem to hear her. He slowly turned his head, observing everyone with a cloudy and inhuman look, and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry. Power. An incredible strength. I want to try it. Right now?" Sasuke slowly stood up, and the black patterns on his skin glowed an ominous purple. Naruto involuntarily recoiled, feeling the terrifying bloodlust emanating from Lucia. Such as Sasuke, possessed and lost, gave him chills of fear. "Hey, asshole! What are you doing? Wake up!" Naruto shouted, trying to regain his composure. But Sasuke just stretched his lips into a crazy smile and said, "Shut up, Naruto. You are a coward and an asshole. You can't tell me what to do. I can easily destroy you with one blow." Sakura gasped in fear, and Kiba growled menacingly, preparing to pounce on the assailant. But Naruto stopped him with a gesture. He understood that he would have to deal with this problem himself. "Sasuke, listen, it's not you. This seal that Orochimaru put on you changed you. He made you hurt us, your friends. But you're stronger than her. You can get over it." For a moment, confusion flashed in Urchi's eyes, but it was immediately replaced by a fierce denial. "No. It's me, the real me. I have finally found the power I have been looking for so much. With her, I will defeat Itachi and anyone who gets in my way." "Idiot. Thief Naruto, losing patience, this is not your power, but a handout for Orochimaru. You dance to his son like a puppet. Are you really ready to betray us and the village for a ghostly revenge?" Sasuke shuddered as if he had received a blow. There was doom and pain in his gaze. "I don't know. This seal is driving me crazy. I don't understand anything anymore." Naruto walked up to him decisively and put his hand on his shoulder. "Then trust me. We'll get through this together. Just believe in us." "And on me?" Sasuke took a shaky breath, and the patterns on his skin began to slowly fade away. It seemed that Naruto's words managed to break the veil of madness that enveloped him. "But I can't promise anything," he said in a hoarse voice. Naruto smiled encouragingly. "That's enough. The important thing is that you didn't get lost, and we'll find out the rest as we go. Okay, guys." Everyone nodded in unison, expressing their support. Even Sakura smiled slightly through tears. They understood that Naruto was able to achieve the impossible, to reach Sasuke and prevent him from falling into darkness. It was encouraging. The guy with the glasses, the third member of Team 7, watched in silence what was happening. His name was Yoshio, and he was a rather mysterious person. Even though Yoshio had been teaming up with Sakura and Sasuke for a while, few people knew anything. Nothing specific about him. He looked a little battered from the recent fight, but there was relief in his eyes behind the sunglasses. Yoshio quietly approached Naruto and Sasuke. "I can help," he said quietly, adjusting his glasses. "I have some medical skills." "Sasuke, let me examine your seal." Naruto looked at his companion with surprise. Yoshio rarely took the initiative, and his sudden offer of help surprised everyone. The night passed with relative calm. The teams took turns keeping watch, fearing an attack. Yoshio spent most of the night observing Sasuke's condition and occasionally applying unfamiliar techniques that seemed to ease the pain of the seal a little. The next morning, reinforced with the remaining supplies, they set off again in search of the team with the Heaven Scroll. Naruto involuntarily narrowed his eyes when he saw Sasuke, who still seemed depressed after yesterday's incident. It took a lot of effort for him to overcome the influence of Orochimaru's seal, and this internal struggle clearly exhausted Uchiha. Suddenly, a noise was heard further on, and an unknown team of genins emerged from the rain behind the trees. When they saw Team 8, they raised their cribs and attacked each other. "Wait a minute, guys. I have an idea," Naruto shouted, quickly creating shadow clones to protect himself. While the clones contained the opponents, Naruto leaned towards Kiba and Hinata, hastily whispering his plan to them. Inuzuka smiled approvingly, and Yuga hesitated for a moment, but then nodded decisively, concentrating. The next instant, Naruto bent his hand seals and sprayed the attacking opponents with a torrent of chakra. The rain geniuses froze for an instant, stunned by this burst of energy. And when they saw the light, the world around them began to change and distort. The forest dissolved, giving way to an endless expanse of sea under a fiery crimson sunset. The waves roared around the astonished Jennings, enveloping them on all sides. "What the hell is this?" one of them shouted, unsuccessfully trying to dispel the illusion. "Where are we? What's the matter?" Another splashed water, panic-stricken. At that moment, Naruto and Kiba attacked. While the weed geniuses were completely engrossed in the optical illusion, the friends cornered their entire team in an instant. When he finished, the mirage disappeared. The genis were found lying in the mud, tightly bound. "Good job, Naruto." Kiba was delighted. "This technique of yours is amazing. And Mata is a great guy too," Mitarashi smiled, winking at the embarrassed girl. "Together we are a force." He began to search the prisoners, and soon exclaimed with joy. "There he is. The Scroll of Heaven. We have passed the second stage." "Friends." Team 8 raised their fists at the same time and burst into cheers. Kiba patted Naruto on the back, and Jimata smiled sheepishly, his eyes shining with pride. Goal accomplished. Now it remained only to reach the central tower and prepare for new challenges. Elated by the success, they quickly moved forward, commenting on the upcoming challenges and dreaming of a well-deserved rest. There were barely a few kilometers left when the genin teams, who were heading to the central tower, suddenly fell into a trap. An ominous rustling and whistling sound was heard from the surrounding thickets, which made their blood run cold. And then, countless venomous snakes invaded the clearing. Snakes of all sizes and colors emerged from among the roots of trees and shrubs, surrounding the shinobi with a dense living ring. "What the hell is this?" Shikamaru shouted, pulling out his gun. "Snakes. Thousands of snakes." She stammered inately, squinting her eyes instinctively. A tall figure in a coarse robe began to emerge from the center of the vortex. Sasuke, still fighting the agony of the seal, opened his eyes wide. "It's the Orochimaru." The villain pulled back his hood, revealing snake-like eyes and a crooked smile. "Oh, I see you know me. What are you doing here, you bastard?" Naruto grunted, getting into position. "I just decided to check if you are worthy of my power," Orochimaru said, slurring his words, licking his lips. Before snatching it from you, he shot a greedy glance at the squirming Sasuke. "Hey, you snake faggot, don't even think about getting on Sasuke." Sakura roared, getting up to defend herself. The snakes, at a sign from Orochimaru, pounced on the genin. And no, Shikamaru and Choji stood shoulder to shoulder, repelling the first attack with shurikens and explosive seals. "Stay together," Shikamaru ordered, scattering extendable shadows to tie the vipers. Meanwhile, Kiba and Akamaru had a hard time. His lightning attacks scattered the snakes, but they stubbornly climbed up in new waves. "Naruto, Hinata, help!" Inuzuka barked, almost bitten on the leg. Naruto nodded and folded the seals for the shadow cloning. 24 copies of Mitarashi appeared around him in an instant, and Nata, concentrating, activated her Yakugan and chased away a wave of vipers. Sakura, who had treated Sasuke unsuccessfully until then, raised her head sharply upon hearing her friends scream. And no, be careful. He saw a huge anaconda quickly approaching Yamanaka from behind. Without a second's hesitation, Sakura threw a kunai, pinning the snake to the ground at the last instant. Hino turned around, her eyes wide open in surprise, realizing how close she was to the danger. "Thank you, Sakura," Hino exclaimed, nodding gratefully to her friend. Orochimaru approached Sasuke, and the rest of the genin rushed to intercept him, surrounding Uchiha with a human shield. Orochimaru stopped. "I see that you will protect my dear Sasuke-kun to the end. Well, that's worthy. In that case." He waved his hand, and the snake suddenly rushed towards the genims. Soon, they completely surrounded the team, forming an ominous cocoon of writhing bodies. "I'll lock you up here until the exam is over, and then I'll take my fair share." The cocoon shrank, burying the stunned genims. The last thing they heard was Orochimaru's sinister laughter. "Enjoy the darkness, kids. See you soon." The genin woke up in complete darkness, with suffocating air and a small space. They were imprisoned inside a giant cocoon of snake bodies by order of Orochimaru. "What the hell is this? Where are we?" Naruto's confused voice boomed out. "Hush, everybody, hush." Shikamaru hissing. "This is Orochimaru's trap. He locked us in here until the end of the exam." Sakura's excited voice could be heard in the darkness. "What do we do? Sasuke-kun is still unconscious. She needs urgent help." "Don't be scared," Sakura said, and not firmly. "You'd better think about how to get out of here." Naruto looked at the dense scaly walls and frowned. He came up with an idea. "Hey, Shikamaru, what if I try?" He paused and folded the stamps. Snake summoning technique. A cloud of smoke arose in the narrow space of the cocoon, and a large rattlesnake appeared. And Mata gasped, and Sakura shrank back against the wall. But then, to the general astonishment, the snakes that formed the wall of the cocoon stirred and whistled, as if greeting a relative. The summoned rattlesnake responded with a kind of hissing sound. "What's the matter?" Shikamaru muttered, dumbfounded. Naruto smiled. "Ah, I thought so too. It seems that the snakes of Orochimaru recognize me as one of their own because of my ability to summon them." He turned to the rattlesnake. "Hey, buddy, could you ask your relatives to open this cocoon? We want to go out and stop Orochimaru." The snake hissed again, and the snakes on the walls of the cocoon moved, separating and forming an exit passage. The Jennings watched with a mixture of amazement and relief as the scaly prey loosened. "Wow, it worked!" exclaimed Kiba. "Naruto, you really are a great snake eater." Soon, the teams emerged from the cocoon with the direct help of the snakes towards Orochimaru. Naruto smiled satisfied and patted the nearest one on the head. "Thank you, friends. Who would have thought they would be on our side?" Exhausted but overwhelmed with relief, the 8th, 7th, and 10th teams rushed to the central tower of the Forest of Death. Sakura carefully carried the unconscious Sasuke, rushing to get him to the doctors as soon as possible. There was nothing blocking their way anymore. The rest of the animals and the traps seemed to be opening, sensing the danger coming from the group. Naruto walked in front, ready to summon snakes at any moment. His determined look and his new skill seemed to drive away all threats from the forest. Shikamaru and Ino were covering the rear of the group, keeping a close eye on the surroundings. Finally, the stone walls of the tower rose above the treetops. The genin quickened their pace, sensing that the target was already close. His fatigue disappeared at the sight of the entrance to the tower. "Look, there's a road ahead." And she wasn't the first to notice. The shinobi examiners and doctors gathered around the main gate of the tower. Seeing the teams approaching, they became worried and prepared for the possible danger. But Naruto extended his palms forward to reassure them. "Don't worry, we are the Konoha team. We need urgent medical help for Sasuke." Forensics noticed Lucia unconscious and immediately called for a stretcher. Relieved, Sakura handed him over to the doctors, who quickly entered the tower. Anko greeted Team 8 with a smile in the lobby of the tower, along with Kurinari, Naruto, Kiba, and Nada. Glad to see them safe and sound. He looked at them approvingly. How was the second stage? Naruto gave a tired smile. Hello, Anko-sensei. It wasn't easy, but we made it. Anko nodded, noticing the injured Sasuke. What happened to Uchiha? Here Naruto changed to a more serious tone. Everything was fine, until we bumped into Orochimaru. Kureina and gasped, and Anko almost choked on the air. What? That bastard? Do you know him? Naruto nodded. Yes. He wanted to get the power from that seal that Sasuke had put. We could barely defeat their snakes. And when we escaped, Orochimaru sealed us in a giant cocoon of snake bodies. Anko's face contorted with rage, his features sharpened. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. This geek dared to hurt my students. Kureina, and looked anxiously from her to Naruto, and vice versa. But in the end, I managed to free us by summoning my snakes. Naruto exclaimed, beaming. They convinced the Orochimaru snakes to open the cocoon, and we managed to escape. He nodded with satisfaction towards the huge snakes waiting outside. Anko was paralyzed for an instant. Then she decisively approached Naruto and put her hand on his shoulder. You did well, Naruto. I am proud of you and the whole team. You have shown incredible resilience and resourcefulness. Now rest, you deserve it. She stroked his head vehemently, brushing his ruffled hair. Naruto returned the hug, feeling his warmth and protection. You were so brave and resourceful, Anko continued with a worried smile, walking away. I'm proud of you, little hero. She patted his cheek and let a tear fall. Naruto beamed as he saw the sincere pride in her eyes. Anko turned to the others. Everyone go get some rest. They deserve it. The teams nodded and headed to the rooms. Anko watched them with a tenacious and worried look, and then turned to Kureina. Did you hear that? Orochimaru is here, and he won't rest until he reaches Sasuke. We need to strengthen security and protect children at all costs. I won't let this monster hurt them. However, the joy was short-lived. Soon, Anko reported with amazing details to the Hokage and the Council of Elders about the Orochimaru incident. It turned out that the villain, apparently, was looking for Sasuke and the power of his seal. This news alarmed the leaders of Konoha. After a heated debate, it was decided to temporarily suspend the investigation for security reasons. All non-resident Genin teams began to urgently evacuate to their home villages. Konoha was put on high alert. The Hokage mobilized all available forces of Honen and Anbu to patrol and protect the perimeter 24 hours a day. Especially valuable shinobi like Kakashi, Gei and Asuma guarded the key positions. Sasuke, as a possible main target of Orochimaru, was temporarily placed under heavy surveillance by the Zanbu. Anko was also assigned to his security, firmly determined to thwart her former teacher's plans. His gaze was burning with determination, and his voice was firm as he instructed the Anbu team on the precautions they should take. When the situation stabilized relatively, the Konoha leaders decided to resume the Chunin examination, but in a much safer way. And improved. Non-resident Genin teams were allowed to participate again, but now under the close supervision of selected Anbu detachments. The exam itself has undergone major changes. Additional stages and tests have been introduced to eliminate any incidents as much as possible. Like the recent Orochimaru attack, Naruto and the rest of the Konoha teams, who had already passed the first two stages, were immediately admitted to the next one. But before that they were subjected to an even more rigorous inspection to detect the presence of prohibited techniques. Uchiha remained under heavy surveillance and close medical supervision. The influence of the seal was temporarily neutralized, but Anko stubbornly continued to look for a way to definitively eliminate this threat. In the new stage, the geniuses had to face each other in a series of duels. These combats had to take place in specially prepared arenas that simulated various combat conditions, which made it possible to evaluate not only the participants' combat skills, but also their tactical thinking. The participants were matched by lot, and then entered a huge arena located on the highest observation tower in Konoha. The judges of these fights were personally the Hokage and the village elders. They kept a close eye on each participant, assessing their combat skills, strategic thinking, and ability to control the situation. Naruto waited in amazement for his turn to enter the arena. Just before the start, Anko approached her, visibly worried about her adopted son. She hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear, "Naruto, remember you already proved that you deserve to be a Chunin. Be yourself and show them what you can do. I believe in you. And remember that no matter what happens, I will always be proud of you." Naruto nodded, holding back the lump in his throat from the overwhelming sensation. He squeezed her hand tightly and replied, "Thank you, Mom. I will do my best to make you proud of me." Naruto ran back to the preparation area, where the fights were already in full swing. Anko remained among the spectators, holding his breath and not taking his eyes off his son, who was ready to enter the decisive battle. After several intense fights, it was Naruto's turn to enter the arena. His opponent, according to the draw, turned out to be a Suna genin named Saburo. When the names of the participants were announced, Anko clenched his fists convulsively, seized with emotion. He knew perfectly well how dangerous and unpredictable was the opponent who was waiting for his adopted son. Naruto and Saburo entered a huge stone arena and stood facing each other in combat position. The Hokage loudly announced the beginning of the combat. Saburo immediately launched into the attack, taking advantage of his physical superiority and height. His heavy caught and whistled dangerously, close to the face of Naruto, who deftly dodged it. "Be careful, Naruto," Anko prayed, without taking her eyes off the sand. Mitarashi concentrated on defense and studying the opponent's style. Saburo launched one attack after another, but Naruto skillfully blocked and dodged, waiting for the right moment to strike back. At one point, Saburo growled and threw a series of explosive seals at Naruto, but Naruto reacted with lightning speed. Snakes summoned. A band of huge snakes materialized around Naruto, who launched an attack. How explosive, saving the genin. Resting their tails on the ground, the snakes raised their heads and began to throw powerful jets of poisonous liquid towards the stunned Saburo. Suna's genin skillfully dodged, using all his agility and reaction speed to avoid the deadly poison jets. But Naruto did not back down, constantly giving new orders to his snake allies to continue the attack. Soon, one of the poison jets hit Saburo, burning his hand. She screamed in pain and hesitated for a moment. This was exactly the moment Naruto had been waiting for. He quickly shortened the distance and knocked down his opponent with a powerful kick to the chest. Saburo fell backwards, panting, and Naruto had already put a cradle and in his throat. "Give up. The fight is over." Judge Hokage nodded and announced loudly, "The winner is Naruto Mitarashi from Konohagakure." The stands roared with victorians. Anko, who was watching the fight, exhaled barely perceptibly when the judge declared Naruto's victory. She caught her pupil's gaze and nodded approvingly, smiling discreetly. After leaving the arena after a brilliant victory over Suna's Saburo, Naruto, along with Anko, headed to the place where the participants would witness the rest of the fights. On the way, his adoptive mother gently praised him. "You did a great job. But don't relax, it will only get harder." They sat down on a bench and continued to watch the fight. Anko did not stop sharing valuable instructions with Naruto.